measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken, we just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. And there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Smith Tools and Purchase, Level Plain Poem, Vitali Z, Colton James, Survive the Spin, F.E. Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Measured Flat, Tiers Morgan, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, The Name's Barely, JMels24, Unimento, Iron26, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Texas Mike, Chow Yun Cat, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links, as I say, to Patreon are below this video. And with that, I will hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Right. I had a couple of nights out on the booze. I very rarely drink these days, but had a good old drink. Feeling quite perky today, though.
Now that you mention it, I think I lost my whole weekend because I had one beer at a Mexican restaurant on Friday night. Ah.
Was it a pint of mezcal?
Nice. I just had a Dos Equis.
Got to disappear temporarily, but I want to do a quick shout out to Wandek. So he sent me a manual super chat. He didn't actually send it to me, he sent it addressed to my wife. So my wife got a letter in the post. She opens it and she's like, "Oh, listen to this." And then she read out a letter from Wandek saying, "Go and buy yourself a roast chicken for the kids and have a drink on me." So thank you very much, Wandek.
I think the term for those is analog super chats, Nathan.
Analog super chats, I like that even better. I'll be right
Even
back.
worse, did it come in a check? No one writes checks anymore.
I don't even own a checkbook.
Is it becoming just as safe to go ahead and send cash in the mail as opposed to writing a check in the mail?
I don't know about that. I think there's something that scans parcels and they can detect money in them. I only know this because I watch a bunch of YouTubers that bust scam call centers, and a lot of them get people to wrap money in books, then wrap tinfoil around that, then post it.
I still write a check now and then. There's something nice about it. Plus, I balance my checkbook. I've got an app for, a checkbook app that is just like my register. But I still balance that. I get my receipts and I manually put them in this checkbook app and check my balance that way. I don't just digitally do everything.
Well, if you'd like to send another check, I'll send you my details.
Say what again?
If you're keen to send another check, I'll DM you my details. Sarcasm.
I could tell, and I wanted to laugh, but I just the language accent barrier, dude. Can you say that in Hoosier?
Hoosier? Is that Canadian?
Oh no, this is totally Hoosier, Indiana, Midwest.
All right.
Nah, that was my attempt at California. Surfer dude. But this is Indiana, Midwest me at the moment.
How's life in Indiana? Is everything going crazy like most other places?
I don't know. It's all relative. You know, we've got a mini farm. We've got sheep that are pissed off right now because we had like highs in the 50s Fahrenheit, almost 60 a week and a half ago. And now it's about 20 degrees. We've had snow. We had a day or two of rain before that, soaking rain. So now the ground's frozen. Like I said, 50 degrees a week and a half ago. The sheep aren't liking it, man. We're supposed to be lambing pretty soon.
I haven't to put loads of supplemental food out for them as well.
We've got hay that we put out. We've got horses too, so we've had several big round bales of hay that they've been stomping on, and a lot of our grass has been eaten down since fall. We never bounced back on a couple of our pastures. So
what kind of setup have you got? Have you got a small holding or like a commercial farm? What size herds you got?
I'd call it a hobby farm. We've got 23 acres, and probably only about 10 or 15 of that is what we'd call pasture. What's where we'd let our sheep and horses. And we got a few goats roam around. And but we don't, it's not a big commercial thing. We raise sheep for 4-H for our kids when they were little. And we do shows, and we still do some shows. We raise predominantly Lincoln long wools. Originally breed from Lincolnshire.
One of my
Lincolnshire.
friends used to be a sheep farmer in the UK. I think about 90, 100 acres. I can't remember the size of the herd, but they were telling me that there's absolutely no money in farming sheep, and that they just ended up getting rid of all the fleeces because they were only worth like 16p per fleece.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The wool has been worth nothing. Now, lamb for meat prices has been good, or like any other meat. Cows, pigs, sheep. They go up and down, but generally, it's you can be fairly profitable in raising sheep for meat. But no, the wool. Now the wool. Probably, if you go back in the text, let me see. In the text chat in the Discord, I actually posted a picture of one of our sheep the other day in the fed text. just because we were chatting around and probably 100 back. Anyhow, I'm going to post it later at the Discord chat. But we raised, like I said, Lincoln long wolves, and if you look those up, they kind of look like Rasta sheep. They have dreadlocks. Their locks are really long and curly, and their wool is often prized for crafters, people who use textile art, stuff like that. So you can, if you get a market, you get a niche market, and people know your wool, then you can get a bit of a interest in being the person that has the wool from the sheep that makes my art the best.
Yeah, they're pretty cool sheep. They look like they'd be a bit of a hassle, like having to shave around the arses and stuff.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worse. Like here in the Midwest, like now, man, we had a bunch of rain, so we got some mud, and now there's mud on their fleece, and then it freezes, and they're a mess. But they trim up okay when you're taking the total fleece off of them, and they clean up pretty nice. Pardon?
How many cuts do you do per season?
We probably only shear them twice a year fully, and depending on if we mostly do shows. And again, you're right. The fleece isn't really worth that much, so we actually throw away a lot of our fleece, especially if it's all dirty and nasty. But we're saving some for what we're calling heritage blankets. There's a company out of Canada, I think, that we're looking at that makes blankets or textiles, or they'll make yarn or whatever out of your wool. They'll take your wool and do stuff with it, and they make beautiful blankets. And the Lincoln long wool is not very good for like clothes and stuff like that. It's very, very tough and very scratchy and very, very strong. They used to use it for carpets, for industrial strength carpets. But that's something we'd have to do ourselves. We wouldn't make any money just selling the fleeces, except to specialty people, crafters.
Have you ever made like any sheepskin rugs just with like the hide with the fleece still attached?
I have seen that, but we're a type of family that names our sheep.
Right. So they're very much pets.
I don't think we could be walking around on Sherlock's wool. We had one name, we did one shape. We did a whole Sherlock Holmes season where we had Sherlock and Watson and who's the bad guy?
Is it Moriarty?
Yeah, we had Moriarty. We had them all. We were named. We went through a whole Sherlock phase with all of our sheep. Yeah, Sherlock and Watson were like our top prize. We've won national
Cool.
wool championship in Louisville. Our first year we went out with their fleece. Looks good on showing them and stuff. It still doesn't bring a good price.
Do you think you're going to be expecting many lambs this season?
We'll see. We had about, I think we've got a flock 30, 40. I think we've got 40 head or so. And we've got probably 15 or so that we scanned and that are bred. And so we'll see. We've only got about 5 or 6 of them that are starting to come close, and we're keeping an eye on. But it's been like the past few years has been weird. There's always been something weird that goes on that happens, and you're just shaking your head. I don't even want to go into it. But we've had years where other guys, they've had done breeding, and they do AI breeding. So that's a controlled situation, artificial insemination. And they've talked about having like only 2 out of 20 or 30 ewes that took, which is weird.
Yeah, it seems like quite an expense for a very low yield.
Well, I'm sure they're saying that. Usually when people are doing AI and doing special breeding like that, they've got the money to do it all. And so it's not a matter of the money and stuff like that, but it's the weirdness that you've got a huge percentage that you've put into it and a very low percentage took. That is an anomaly. So what I'm saying is that there just seems like every year there's an anomaly that you just can't figure out. And something goes weird. Like we had, 1 year we had a bunch of preemies, it seemed. And we lost several lambs after they were born. Things like that. And you want to go into, the conspiracy route, you can't help but think about it. Whatever they're spraying in the skies to help us, whether that's affecting your animals and stuff. But all you can do is just roll with it, unfortunately.
Another one of my friends who's got a small hold, and he had a bunch of Hebridean sheep. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They've got a black fleece and they look quite prehistoric.
Oh, black. Would you say Hebridean or Hebridean?
Hebridean. From the Hebrides.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
They've got quite impressive horns on them as well.
Oh, that's not what we call those. Well, the black ones, maybe. What do we call those? Those, dude, Hebridean. It's just like it sounds. Hebridean. Hebridean.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Those are, I got to ask my wife what those are again. They're devil horn sheep. Those are crazy. Those are hard to raise too, man. Sheep literally when you get into raising sheep, the first thing you learn is that sheep literally look for a way to die every day. How am I going to kill myself today? And they'll get their heads stuck in fences. Sometimes they'll just die and you have no idea. That's what's so frustrating. Is that they'll, we found one day just like 20 years ago or whatever, just under our deck. she had crawled she was still halfway hanging out, but she was like halfway under the deck and just died there. I'm laughing now, but things like that. So these with like 4 horns and they go every freaking where. Good grief. You get those around a fence and they're just dead. Oh,
That was something
but
that
no,
my
we've
folks
got
were treated to.
there's someone else.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say my folks used to live on a farm many years ago, and I remember when I was quite young, they first bought the farm, moved in, and one of the first things they encountered was an outhouse on the very far corner of the property, which was all fenced off, so the sheep weren't able to. I say weren't able to get in. Shouldn't have been able to get into that bit of the property, right? Because it's like the living quarters for the people, so you don't want the sheep in that bit. Anyway, the bit that was all fenced off in the corner of that particular bit was an outhouse toilet. And day one, they open the outhouse door, and there's a sheep with its head in the bog, dead. That was day one.
Welcome to country life.
I'll have to ask my mother about that. Now you've reminded me about it, because I remember them mentioning it. And because at the time they weren't very impressed, if you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, we had to deal with the dead sheep that was in the outhouse. You're like,
Hopefully it wasn't dead that long.
I would have imagined probably not. I don't know. Like I say, I didn't actually experience this personally, but I remember the story. And like I say, it was delivered with an air of disgust as opposed to an air of humour, which is how I'm delivering it.
Well, maybe the years have passed and the humor returns. we've got stories that will curl your toes, but now we've learned from them and moved on and kept some humor about it.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken, we just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. We are joined by Jin, Refracted, One Deck, Neil, Len, Adam, and a whole bunch of people in the Flipside Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
Hey, how you doing, people? Nice to hear you. Nice to hear you.
Speaking of being
Good Monday morning.
nice to be heard, I forgot to pause the recording. For the Uncut, ironically, and after show, what I typically do when it comes to the introduction for the live show is just press the pause button. So in other words, if you're listening to an Uncut show, you'll get to a point, suddenly it'll say Flat Earth Debate, like the splash screen, whatever you call it, right at the beginning of the intro, which you do sometimes you do, sometimes you don't get on the live stream. And I'll pause it and then unpause it as soon as I've finished shouting out people to join, all that sort of stuff, right? So you don't get it twice, because I do one at the beginning of the Uncut and After show. But today I forgot to pause it. So if you're watching this on an Uncut and After show, you're like, why have I got a live introduction right in the middle of the show? Well, that is why I normally pause it. But not today. How's everybody doing? You all had a lovely weekend?
Yeah, good old drink. Good fun.
Yeah, nice weekend. Did you enjoy your meal on the Friday night? You were going to that Malaysian, if I remember rightly.
Himalayan, but close. Yeah, we went to the Himalayan in Leamington Spa. It was lovely with Craig. And I don't know if I should say his name because he may not want me shouting him out should he listen to this, but another guy who's a glober who likes to make examples of how he works and functions with his... would it give him away if I told what he was doing? He works with silicon, right? So he produces silicon. So it's got a very finite customer base. Not finite, but a specialist customer base, right? And when he's making his examples of how AI functions for him in discussions over the table, he likes to drop in the examples about Earth being flat or a ball in his AI example. So it's like, well, hypothetically, if I'm setting up an AI server to do this particular task for one of my sales team, and one of my customers is Nathan Oakley, and I ask it, and then he gives a flat Earth example that he'll punch into his AI that he's got locally on one of his Swish servers because he doesn't want to pay to farm out the AI resources. So yeah, so he's gone from being very combative to being quite jovial in terms of, I don't want to talk about this subject necessarily because he knows what happens, to I'll incorporate it into examples of what I've done at work today, because then there's no actual expanse that can be made. It's just an example in my story. It's very smart. So that's how he was doing it. Should I shame him? Should I shame Mark? Oh no, I've done it accidentally. Anyway, so yeah, it was very nice indeed. Speaking of meals, as he's on the show, and I should give him another shout out. One Deck, thank you very much for the manual super chat you sent to my wife. She was elated. She got to experience that excitement that I've experienced a couple of times from you previously, maybe 2 or 3 times, in fact. But yeah, getting I got told what it was, an analog super chat. She was really delighted and liked your message as well, getting roast chicken. So thank you very much for that. She said thank you also and wanted me to pass on her sentiments. So thank you very much for the analog super chat.
I was going to ask Nathan, what's the price range when you go to a Himalayan restaurant compared to like an Indian? I've never been to a Himalayan one, that's why.
Well, it's just exactly the same. If you're familiar with a curry, it's a curry. I mean, they had a couple of things on the menu that I'd not had before. So whereas I'm familiar with, and I'm sure you're familiar with, Baltis, right, which just means bucket. That's what it actually means. And because it's served in the pan it's cooked in, which is a little bucket-shaped pan, and they typically serve it in that. Well, in this particular restaurant, they do have Baltis, or I think they do. But what they have is something called a clay pot. Now, it actually comes in a metal pot, but nevertheless, I would assume that or something like that. That's the only thing on the menu that I've not previously tried. So, being from Birmingham, and I'm sure you're probably similar from London, it's similar. I'm sure there's loads of curry houses that you can go to. You know what I mean? So you've tried everything on the menu by the time you get to your 40s, and certainly I have. And now, rather than trying everything on the menu like when I was a kid, and not worrying about whether or not it's going to upset my stomach, now I've found something that doesn't, and I just stick to that. So I'm now incredibly boring. Whereas almost everything on the menu I'm familiar with and I've tasted at least, or at least ordered myself at least one stage in my life. So I'm a big curry fan, like most people from Birmingham and London, and well, any big city in the UK.
Yeah, and the UK has enjoyed 300 years of Indian curry anyway, so this is why the English love the curry so much, by the way. And it's okay to have your meal, by the way, as you like it.
We've been thieving for a long time. That's something else that came up in discussion. So we were talking about, as you do, I don't know any of the common current affairs. So when it comes to discussions over a dinner table, I'm pretty useless because they'll say, what about this place that they've invaded? And what I have to pool on is my general understanding of how the world works from when I stopped being interested in it, for the reasons I stopped being interested in it. So in this instance, I sort of fumble my way around the conversation going, well, what trade is actually being exploited? Because whatever the excuse they give, oh, we're going to save the poor people of blah, blah, blah. You're like, no, you're not. What trade route do we need for us to be there? That's what I ask. Like, what commodity is it that we're stealing from this particular area of the world? It's never about their poor women that are being persecuted. That's just bullshit, as you... Well, maybe people who are watching this don't know that, but if you're familiar with news events, and certainly when it comes to the British, we just steal everybody's stuff. And the way we keep hold of it is by controlling all the trade routes, right? And we have done for hundreds of years. Anyway, shout out to... Go on, was somebody about to add something before I shout out this super chat, because I can't see the person's name. BMR. Hello, Nathan. The most recent shows have been outstanding. Having Jin involved has added some fire and some stubbornness. Yeah, I agree. I mean, hate to talk about you in the third person, Jin, especially as we've just had a conversation. Jin is my representative of the old guard of what I now call anti-globers. And his attitude and stubbornness in terms of, well, I will be telling people why Earth's not a sphere, that's how I do it, and I'm not going to change my ways. As he slowly comes round to realising how wrong that is, he is representative of the audience coming round at the same sort of pace. So he's important to be on the show. Now, he often annoys me and I'll often get shouted at, but Jin's got a thick skin, like me. I can see a lot of me in Jin, which is to say he'll be very resilient to being shouted and sworn at for whatever reason. He might get the hump like I would, but he won't hold it against me, I hope. So it's good to have Jin on the show. Lots of people get lots of comments, and it tends to be the case that whoever's the newest and the most vocal will get the most whipping boy style comments, which is, I extremely dislike Jin because he's blah blah blah, insert moan about what Jin's done on that show. You're like, yeah, but you've got to understand there's always going to be someone you love to hate on the panel because there's loads of people. There we go. Sorry to talk about you in the third person, Jin. Thank you for the super chat, BMR.
Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, that's okay. You can hate me as much as you like. I'm not wrong, and I won't be changing my position. I will incorporate the new ideas and move along with it. What are you talking about here? I don't give up one dance routine for a new one, do I? I blend them in. Come on.
Yeah, fair enough. For now. Obviously, I disagree entirely because I think that it's detrimental to the position if you entertain their position that we used to entertain for the last 10 years by saying, well, if the Earth was a sphere, then the distance to the horizon would be 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Ignoring that the observer's height in feet is a measurement of flat Earth, the distance is horizontal and linear. Everything about the calculation requires you have parallel planes for eye level with respect to surface level. That's a bit of a tongue twister. You've got flat Earth proof 6 ways from Sunday, and I always want to lean into those facts. So I was pondering over the weekend, the guy we covered is still in the title. I tend to update the title of the show after we've done the show because I don't know what we're going to talk about. So I just leave the old title and just update the number by 1, which is what you've got on today's show. So if you're looking at the show going, this isn't what this show's about, you're like, no, it's live. So we have to go with the flow. Whatever the show becomes about will be what it gets titled after the fact. So therefore, whatever the last show was is the current title. And that last show was about a guy who's just measuring Earth flat. Now, on the previous occasion that we covered that particular individual, his response was to say Nathan doesn't understand, which I took a little bit personally, I'll be honest, because I do. And we're covering the same thing. But he's not getting told his kids should be taken off him and he should be castrated and pushed off tall buildings after drinking bleach, like we are. He's saying, oh, well, this might seem a bit boring to you in the audience. You're like, what, your 100,000 strong audience? I mean, it's not like you've made a couple of thousand videos like I have and dedicated your entire life to this. You're just out making the odd video, and you can easily garner plenty of ad revenue and subscriber base from having your material presented to anybody who might type in mapping. That vague will get you to your video, I mean, no doubt. But if you type in measuring Earth flat or flat Earth, your chances of finding me are 0. Therefore, it's a real struggle as a YouTuber. But I get persecuted, ridiculed, mocked, shamed for pointing out how Earth is flat, while he gets the general misapprehension that talking about measuring Earth flat is, this isn't very controversial and is never going to get me any, massive limelight for the fact that I'm doing something extremely off the wall. He's like, I'm just talking about how my map measures flat Earth. He just doesn't realise that yet. So for me, it was an interesting sort of ponderance over the show that we did on Friday, because I feel that there is an element of flat earthing that's normalised by others because it's in a geography category, while us talking about how Earth's not a sphere is tantamount to inviting people to ridicule, mock, tell us to drink bleach because of how flat Earth and flat earthing, actually anti-globing, has been positioned.
Have you had any feedback at all from the map guy?
I don't know. I don't get a single second. I went over my comments once or twice over the weekend for about 25 seconds a piece. I was in bad moods for various different reasons. I can't remember what it was that put me in an absolutely foul mood when I was responding to comments. But almost every comment I responded to, I was swearing at them and calling them stupid. And I'm like, because they make it personal. In the comments, they're always... One, for example, was on a microphone video about Flat Earth. And it was basically, is this guy a flat earther? Why is he selling microphones? So I launch into an attack on this twat. I'm like, I'm selling mics because I'm censored to keep people like you stupid. The reason the censorship exists is so you can continue to believe an incorrect assertion that keeps you under control, that the Earth's a sphere. When I cover how Earth is measured flat, that censorship leads to me needing to flog bloody microphones. So coming along and making it about, is this the flat Earth guy? And that was the other thing I added. If I was dead, Earth would still be measured flat. The fact that I put that information out in that context means that I need to be censored from people like you to keep people like you stupid. That's the bottom line. But, by contrast, the Wayne guy that we're talking about from the map reading channel, or Society or something like that, I'll have to look up what his actual channel name is. I'm sorry for getting it wrong. I remember his name, Wayne. Anyway, the Wayne guy won't appreciate unless we tell him how different the behaviour and attitude towards what he does is versus the attitude towards what we do is. And the distinction is that he will never talk about how Earth's not a sphere. As a community, we do. That's the difference. We both cover how Earth is measured flat with trig points and distances and parallel planes and vertical datums and what else did he cover?
Benchmarks.
Benchmarks, that was the other one. Yeah, all of those things are stuff that we cover regularly. And if we just covered it the way he covered it, maybe we'd never been censored, but then we wouldn't be alluding to the fact where it is also unnecessary to make a logical consistency out of a statement of fact, where he says, I measure my distance to within the millimetre 200 miles away from this point that I'm standing over now that's buried in a little chamber. But it's so accurate when they came to fix one that's, I don't know, another couple of 100 miles in a different direction. It was within 1 millimetre or 1/10 of 1 millimetre of what they'd determined it was originally. You're like, okay, so the accuracy is really high when you've got parallel planes of reference to describe how things are from high from sea level in the UK because of the Ordnance Survey. And you go, okay, that's wonderful. But that means that Earth's flat. Well, that's a consistency that isn't needed. You don't need to offer, if we measure Earth flat, then Earth is flat. Because the statement of fact is just, we measure Earth flat. Full end of statement. Not, we measure Earth flat, therefore Earth is flat. I know that's in the song, and I appreciate that I've put it into a logical consistencies. It's modus ponens. If A, then B. A, therefore B. But it wasn't necessary for me to do that. It's just a statement of fact. No conclusion needed after it. Now, we've been making that conclusion unnecessary because then it seems like it sits in logic. You're like, no, this isn't a philosophical question to be asked with an if statement to put it into a logical consistency statement, an if and then statement. It's totally unnecessary. It just is Earth, that is, measured flat.
Yeah, that's very true in what you say, but I like to make sure that people do understand what I mean by that, because I'm saying a little bit more than that it's just measured flat. It's in fact, that is what you're living on. You are living on a flat Earth, because that's the whole point of the flat Earth movement. And I thought we was working our way to getting that point across to the people with the best presentation you can give, and the shortcuts, like you said, Earth is measured flat. I use that. I still have to end up elaborating on that because the people don't seem to get it. So you have to get it to them and say, yes, I mean, you are living on a flat Earth. Yeah, it's measured flat, and that's your proof right there that we're living on a flat. Do you understand now? Yeah. And then people get it that way. And then they're still going to ask a myriad of questions, which you guys term the feast of nonsense. But as I am an all-rounder in CBR1, I will answer all those questions and entertain that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
so when I say this is an apple, oh, sorry. I was going to say, so when I say this is an apple, people may not understand what an apple is. So I need to go into an explanation of what an apple is.
Basically, that's a very piss poor analogy there that you just put forward, John. Because when we're talking about the shape of the Earth, you've got people who are actually doing surveying and measuring Earth flat, but don't realize they're on a flat Earth. Along comes Jin CBR1. It says, do you realize that you're living on a flat Earth? Oh, what do you mean? Well, you're measuring Earth flat, aren't you? Yeah, well, there you are then. Are you measuring any curvature when you're measuring Earth flat? No, you're not, are you? Well, there you go then. So no, the apple's an apple. Everybody knows what an apple is, but they don't know they're living on a flat Earth because they're under indoctrination. So try a bit better, John. Piss poor that was. Absolute piss poor.
I disagree. It wasn't piss poor.
I just have to convince everybody that an apple doesn't exist, and then my statement will be correct.
Again, piss poor analogy, John. We're talking about indoctrination. People are believing they're on a globe, yeah? So, right, when we said Earth is measured flat, utilized flat, and we actually explain that, other questions do come along and you need to elaborate, okay? I was just in the 24/7 earlier on today, and, you know, again, we're entertaining, as you would put it, the feast of nonsense. That's because that's what these people bring to us. And we don't call them nonsenses because every question they ask is a good question. That's how we operate, okay? Thank you. Try harder, John. That's not a good analogy there, sorry.
I disagree.
So that analogy that you say isn't any good. It's not any good because you declare it to be, but when they ask questions which are incorrect and aren't formulated correctly, those are good questions.
Basically, their questions are to find out what's going on. What do you mean it's flat? What do you mean it's measured flat? What about this? What about that? What about those? And we answer those questions. That's my intention. My intention is to ensure that they understand that Earth is measured flat and utilized flat, and you are living on a flat Earth. There's your proof. Simple. Whatever questions they bring forth for them to get to understand that is welcomed, so they can remember they're indoctrinated. I was like them as well. The only thing is I came from an engineering background, so that made me realize it instantly in a clip, and military background. So instantly I knew I was in error. But other people, they're heavily indoctrinated. They don't have an engineering background. They're full of beliefs controlled by the system, for example. So you need to elaborate a bit more. The old me, Joe blog and Sue blog on the streets, unfortunately. I'm prepared
so
for
it's
that. I'm on a
necessary
round.
to answer malformed questions.
When they ask a malformed question, we tell them that. I'll inform them that. And then we carry on to ask the correct question again, give them a chance to do it. Always give them a chance to do it. And then, yeah, so this is all part of the enjoyment of that feast of nonsense, as you put it. I love it. Yes.
Please, give me the correct question to ask.
I personally don't need to do that. You know what you want to say. Say it. Thank you. You know
you're saying
what?
You correct their questions. What is the correct question to ask?
Well, it would depend. I'm not going to start reading off questions now. It depends on the time and the moment. I said that your analogy was piss poor, is what I said, and I stand by that. Piss poor.
Arbitrarily, you said that, yes.
I disagreed. Point I feel John's trying to make, Jin, is that when it comes to statements of what is, there isn't anything happening. As you said, people want to know what's going on, like a phenomena, what's occurring. Well, nothing's occurring. It's a statement of what is when you describe how Earth is measured. And John's comparison was to say, well, when you've got an apple, it's just an apple. You go, well, some people don't understand apple. You're like, okay. But they do. The comparison's sound. When you describe when you fly in straight and level flight, for instance, yeah, that is a statement of fact that doesn't need any qualification attached to it. Why would you say you fly in straight and level flight because the flight was level and straight? It doesn't need to turn into a logical consistency, and it can't be an if statement either. If we fly in straight and level flight, no, we just do. It just is. Just an apple.
Well, I think the measurement that you brought up earlier on over a couple of 100 miles, and it was accurate in like to within a millimeter. I think you could back that up with bringing up what the curve calculator would say is the obstruction that should be in the way. Maybe you could bring that kind of thing up to say it right.
Absolutely not. So this is an apple. It is red. I picked it earlier today. Any chance you can go and get a tangerine to show me how it isn't one of those? Why?
Well, in that case, so you can physically see the difference between the two.
Why?
Well, because the individual who's asking the question, Nathan, wants to know that.
What
That's
question?
why.
Do you think the curve calculator shows you curvature?
No, it does not.
Again, you need a flat Earth, a horizontal baseline to even have that curvature in the first place. We get all that, but the individual asking that question doesn't get it. So you need to get that across to them so they understand. Well, hang on a minute, John. Whilst you're trying to explain to them why it is, as Nathan asked, why? That's why. So that the individual understands your statement. Earth is measured and utilized flat. It's when you fly on an aeroplane that's flat and level, that's proof of your flat Earth where you live, because it's not taking a curved trajectory, which is what Liam was telling you here. Simple.
So I need to get a curve calculator that is not a curve calculator to give them the false impression that there is curvature to show them how it's not curving.
You might have to do that, yes. Unfortunately, yes, because some people are not up to that level of understanding. And I'm always going to help them to get to that understanding and then to bring them round to the fact that this is what we mean by Earth is measured and utilized flat. It's all part of undoing the indoctrination and then bringing them round to the reality of what was said at the very beginning. And then they get it and they walk off thinking, yeah, I'm going to check some more, blah, blah. I might have some more questions. Yes, come back, blah, blah, blah. Come on, man. We're able to help. Okay?
So I need to give them a curve calculator for them to believe in. Ignore that it's not a curve calculator and just let them assume that it is so they can understand how it's not curving. That's what you're telling me.
Well, my point of view was you give them the flat measurements and then say your globe religion dictates there should be this in between, but there's not. Then that just reinforces the flat measurements.
Yes, exactly. And that's what has to happen, because that situation dictates that, the situation that we're in. So you may not want to do that, John, but that's fine. You don't have to do that. Right? Great stuff.
I think to be fair, we need to also kind of separate
just 1 second,
anti-flat earthers with absolute normies and carry the discussion that way. I don't think, I don't sense that Jen is spending too much time begging the question with anti-flat earthers. They're going to be bringing that stuff up on their own and making those arguments. I argued with a guy the other day. I told him that, asked him if he knew how to work a compass, and you have to level it. And I left it at that. And he came back with, well, you explain magnetism on a flat Earth, and then spent another 4 posts berating me for running away from his question. As I'm just saying, dude, it's just flat. You have to, all maps are flat. Compass is flat. You got to level it wherever you're going. You're doing flat Earth measurements. You've got north, south, east, west. Those are cardinal directions, flat, and you've got distance.
What does a compass measure?
Directionality.
What is compass? Right,
measure degree.
The magnetic field lines on a flat plane. Why would you need to explain how that works on a flat plane?
Did Wayne have to explain any of this?
I don't. That's what I was saying. I don't have to, and I didn't, and I kept away from it. I just kept hammering that it was flat. My deal is that he was or what I'm trying to explain is that he was an anti-flat earther, which I recognized from the beginning. So I wasn't going to give him much time other than to just beat flat around him, and his only rebuttal was to say that I'm running away from his question and I won't answer his question. And I didn't.
Okay,
so,
just by comparison, Surf Daddy, I'll get back to you in a second, John. If that Wayne guy from the mapping channel had somebody in the comments saying, how does this work on a globe? Do you feel he would be in any way obliged to entertain this person if the person said, you're not answering my question, Wayne. I asked you how this flat planar parallel measurement to within a millimetre works on a globe. Would he be somehow committed to answering those sorts of questions?
What person's going to ask that question? Because most people are thinking they're on a globe already. So who's going to ask that question? Unless it's a sarcastic, maybe flat earther, maybe. But come on, man. What kind of question is that, Nathan?
The kind of
actually, I posted this guy's video when you first reviewed it to Facebook, and immediately one of my pet trolls sent back of course they didn't watch it, right? They sent back a video that guy had done, and you have to search about it, and it's probably a old video, but he actually did a video where he used a compass to show that the Earth was a ball. So, or he was doing orienteering or something like that. Anyhow, he made the connection, and it was very bad. I mean, it was like, it was terrible. And he was laughing the whole way through because you knew he didn't know what he was talking about. But he did actually do a video where he incorporated because Earth's a ball into it, and it had to do with compass and directions and things like that. This very same guy. So obviously someone had asked him how directions work on a globe. So that'd be interesting if someone could search that out. That may or may not be interesting. I don't personally care. But I think we need to try to differentiate when we're discussing how we do things, what type of person we're talking to. I rarely get a chance to talk to someone on the street and just introduce the idea of flat Earth. And
let me just, before you go into this, sorry, Surf Daddy, that's interesting with regards to the mapping guy, the Wayne guy. So what you're saying is maybe we found out why it would be the case that I end up having people tell me I should have my kids taken off me, told to be jumping off tall buildings, drinking bleach and being castrated, and he isn't. That's because he's a cuck. So when someone came along and said, how does this two-dimensional flat device for giving you directionality, that's a compass, work on a globe, Wayne cucked to his belief and faith in the comment section. So rather than running away from the comment, as we would be accused from if we're like, what the hell does this have to do with how flat we are? Wayne cucked to that, therefore isn't going to be algorithmically censored because he came up with some bullshit about how a two-dimensional directionality works on a sphere.
So actually, I'll see if I can find it. Because, yeah, that would be kind of voyeuristic to watch this, because I did watch it, because I have troll pets, and so I'd see what he was trying to point out, even though he didn't watch my video. But all I remember is him just that laughter that he has. It was nervous laughter, like, oh, this isn't exactly right, and well, this is. It was literally cucking and taking the ticket and bowing down and doing what he's told. See, you'd have many more viewers and a lot more money, Nathan, if you would just do an apology video, like Jared.
Right, so what you're saying is, like Wayne, what I need to do is take a two-dimensional device of directionality, that's south, that's north, yeah, and go, nah, that's north. It's not, but it is. Yeah? In other words, cuck to the bullshit that violates the principle of this device. I mean, you've got to be a complete moron to not appreciate what a compass does and where it points. But Wayne's cucked to that nonsense, has he? Oh, how interesting.
Oh, very much.
That's what you've got to do then. In order to be not censored, you have to say, yeah, this makes no sense at all if I try and explain how it works on a ball, but I'll do so anyway, because then I can keep my 100,000 views and talk about how flat I measure Earth without consequence. I mean, I talk about the exact same subject and get a little Nathan's a science denier tag on the bottom of my video. Wayne doesn't have to deal with that, does he? Because he went, this two-dimensional compass does work on a ball, definitely. No, it doesn't. Works two-dimensionally. It's a flat orientating device.
That's what they're all doing, though, isn't it? Dave McKeegan did it with his horizontal elevation profile example, showing you the clear horizontal sea level 0 degree baseline with elevations above and below, obviously flat and horizontal and level. Dave was just, it's much easier to show it horizontal, the curve.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I'd feel pretty pathetic if I did that. I mean, I don't know how I can weigh this up in terms of a compare and contrast between not being a complete cocksucker, that's a cuck that follows the narrative of their religion in spite of it defying axiomatic principles that they're very coherently explaining, and not being a cocksucking cuck and kowtowing to the bullshit that doesn't make any sense because it doesn't make any friggin' sense. But you can have 100,000 views and 100,000 subscribers if you do suck a little bit of cock. Right, Wayne? Right, Dave? Right, Jaron? Right, Simon, Dan? Right, Dave, professor, not a professor? You all just have to suck a little bit of cock when it doesn't make any sense. You bunch of cucks. It's pathetic. They've got no spine. That's what I'm hearing. I can explain how this kind of works
Nathan.
on a ball. I can explain it if it means I don't have to suffer the ridicule. You bunch of cowards. Yeah? So you're scared. That's the whole point. Like any system of control, it's designed to keep you, cock-sucking cucks, in fear. Fear of the general public ridiculing you and mocking you for being a flat earther, potentially. That fear is what drives and compels you pathetic, spineless cowards.
Well, there could also be an element of pride and elitism in the area of the people who think they're in the sciences, and not to so much keep people in fear, but keep people ignorant because they don't know, they don't understand, they don't know the science and stuff like that. And I have an example in the realm of astrophysics, the oxymoron. There was a post, someone else posted it. It was from Jason Lyle, who's with, he's the creation science guy. I don't think he's not with Answers in Genesis, but he's part of that crowd with the young Earth people. He posted a short video that basically said that the Big Bang, they're finding out with new data that it's proving that young Earth creationism is true. And it was one of those shorts where he never comments and never replies back. So he's a shill on that regard. But all the other trolls that were on there were either licking his boots or complaining that he was a dumb Christian who is just replacing God with their atheistic evolution of Big Bang, which is an interesting phenomena for me to watch. But I just went on and I comment. I said, well, how did the Big Bang, the theory, the philosophy, I've been saying philosophy instead of science, entirely is invalidated by the first law of thermodynamics. So it doesn't exist. You can't science it. You can't predict nothing. So end of story. And that was to all the ballers and to Jason Lyle. Of course, Jason hasn't said anything back. But everyone basically comes back with, you don't understand the science. And that's the way it goes with anti-flat earthers. It wasn't even about flat earth, although it'll turn into it because they'll see my profile picture. Oh, you're just a flat earther. Well, you don't know science. And what's sad is that the Christians, I call them helio-Christians, they're the ones that are knee-deep into the science, the astronomy BS that can't exist because it violates the first law of thermodynamics. They should know that. It's frustrating. That and the second, and the inverse square law of light. I never get any satisfactory answers on how we can see stars from hundreds of billions of trillions of light years away. So I think we need to separate what those type of people from what we would hope would be literal green normies who really have no idea. And the only way it comes up is just in passing. You know, it's like explaining to my kids who still don't get it. You know, I don't debate anymore. I just say, you know, that's the way we measure it. You want to know about, how we measure it flat, we'll talk about it, but I'm not going to argue about it. And most of the time, they're not interested. So I think most normies are like that too. They're not interested in knowing that they're on a globe. So we just need to separate that when we're debating tactics and how we're doing stuff. So that's it. As June says, thank you.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted 4 times. When you say helio-Christians, they're just Christians. In the same way as I would love to relabel the current flat earthers as anti-globers, what people call flat earthers are the people that go around professing Earth not to be a sphere. That is what a flat earther is. An anti-flat earther is the guy you described that says, well, how does this work on a flat Earth? Because he doesn't like flat Earth. Now, the fact that those two people aren't in direct contrast and opposition to each other is intentional. And the same applies to the, quote, helio-Christians. They're just Christians. Where do you think all of this stuff came from? It came from the Roman Catholic Church and has been peddled through churches to the people. And those people are Christians. So it's not like they're special for being believers in heliocentrism. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be a fair group of people currently that distinguish themselves from that type of Christian. Say, no, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I understood he gave his sins, he sacrificed himself for my sins, all that sort of stuff. And that's it. This stuff that came from the Roman Catholic Church about us being on a ball flying around the sun and the Big Bang, Lemaitre and Copernicus and whoever, Huygens, I don't buy any of that. That's not me. But that's a separate group to Christians. The other thing I was going to ask is, when you say bootlicker, is that a more polite way of saying sucking D? For my future reference.
Yes, that is a nicer way of saying.
Yes, you've heard that before, Nathan. Bootlicking, you've heard that before, surely.
It's an army term, isn't it, bootlicker, I would assume?
No, you're just licking the boots of the authority.
Yeah, it is an army term, yeah.
Kissing their feet.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I'd use. And just in the moment when you're on camera and you've got to come up with a word for being that type of person, you know, cuck sucking D. Okay, bootlicker. Yeah, bootlickers. You bunch of spineless bootlickers. It just doesn't.
That's much better than the anatomy one. Absolutely.
I'm just
tidy up a little bit.
But anyway, yes.
Well, it does have more to do with authority. In my circle, which is the Christian biblical cosmology apologetics circle, by not acknowledging God's authority for his truth of how he created the earth, how he created the heavens and the earth. That's what God created. Heavens and earth, stars, sun, and moon on the fourth day. There's a firmament, there's a flat earth, there's a crystalline dome. That's like the pillars of main theological creation description, right? The ones who absolutely defend the heliocentric Helios, God, sun God, it's the Helios-centered religion, dogma, theology. Those who defend that, once they are told that it is absolutely not scriptural, they are no longer trustworthy as someone who believes that all truth comes from God and things like that. If their theology, their idea of the truth of God's creation is actually false, then they are spreading lies. Once you're told the truth and you reject it, that's when they become the bootlickers, because they've made themselves the authority. They've made Jason Lyle. They've made Danny Faulkner. They've made Ken Ham. They've made the world, Neil deGrasse Tyson, their authority, their source of what is true.
Gotcha.
And I use Helio-Christian as a pejorative when I'm talking to people who are Helio-Christians or Heliosians, to point out that, one, they're no different than Scientologists, except with the Xenu thing, and that they are not preaching from the Bible. And their authority is Helios, or man. And that's where they're getting that's why they're bootlickers.
Okay, but by comparison, the reason I say sucking D is because we're talking YouTube. So when I'm talking about Professor Dave Explains, that Wayne guy, whoever, they're YouTubers. Therefore, I pull from my performing arts experience, where, you know, you'd be having a casual conversation with someone famous and they'd be like, well, yeah, you've got to suck a bit of D to get along in this industry. That's the sentiment and attitude to sum up some cock-sucking bootlicker, as you call it, that's sucked a bit of dick to get where they are. Well, metaphorically speaking, as much as people are listening to this going, this is just crude, Nathan. I'm like, no. I studied performing arts. It was very incestuous. Everyone was sleeping with everybody else. And that was a methodology to get ahead. Not get head, but get ahead in that industry. And, you know, you can imagine some famous guy or girl going, yeah, I had to suck a bit of dick. You know, and they might mean it metaphorically, they might not. So when I say it, I want it to be crude and crass to a certain degree, because we're talking about performance. We're talking about YouTube. It's of that ilk. So yes, army-wise, it's bootlicker. But I don't know if the Christian aspect is kind of irrelevant in this regard, because my description is more appropriate for these people. They're YouTubers.
What about groveling? Another word we could use there. They're groveling to be there. All right, there you go. Doesn't always have to be sucking of the knob. No, it can be groveling or bootlicking. But you want it to be cock sucking? That's up to you.
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't say that for like Jason Lyle. I mean, he is accomplished. He's got his pieces of paper degrees and things like that. He's in a different category. I wouldn't call him the bootlicker. I think that trolls, the anti-flat earther troll guys, they're the bootlickers. The authorities, the Jason Lies, the Faulkners, Ken Ham, and all of them are so. We talked about this years ago about being it's a fallacy that's so heavily invested. Does anyone remember that? The heavy investment fallacy, where you're just so deep in it that you just can't turn around. I think that's where most of them are at, and that someone comes along and says, "Oh no, we measure it flat. Oh no, level's level. Oh no, the first law of thermodynamics totally rips apart the Big Bang and evolution. So why are we even talking about it? You know?"
Because Big Daddy government, in this case YouTube, the power that should not be, they want you on your knees sucking a bit of D. Can you mute, please, Surf Daddy?
Yeah, hold on.
They want you to cuck to what they like, not what is real. Now, if you're prepared to get on your knees and go gobble, 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 yeah, compass works on a globe, then you can keep your channel and you can be promoted because you've cucked to that nonsense, your belief that you were trained with at school. Well, okay, so you can cuck to that nonsense, can you? Okay, get on your knees then, just have a little bit, you'll be all right. Dave, or Jaron, or Dan, or not a professor. Yeah, you're just on your knees a little bit. Because these people aren't dumb, they're not the normies of society. They're not normal people. They're out here doing their anti-flat earth thing, and they do know better. Because they all watch, they all know what we're talking about. When we're comparing Wayne on his good day, sniffing his own farts and his smug delight about how wonderful he is for describing how flat earth gets measured, he's in that position because he's been on his knees a little bit, hasn't he? Yeah? Yeah, someone asked you about how it worked on a globe, and you immediately got on your knees, got it all down your throat, didn't you? Because then you can carry on going, oh, it's no big deal, I just measure Earth flat. Look, it's within a millimetre on this parallel plane of reference. But you remember you were on your knees, Wayne, weren't you? Yeah? That'll never be me. Now, I might put a few people on their knees in front of me, but we're very different people. Yeah? Now, as a consequence, people don't like people like me. They prefer people who are subservient, obedient, on their knees when necessary, taking a big old gulp of it. And that's what Wayne's done. That's what we found out today. Because it didn't make sense to me. How come this guy's talking about what we're talking about without a tramp stamp below his video? Well, now we know, don't we? Yeah? We know exactly why. You've got to give head to get ahead.
It's interesting you say that. Sorry, Nathan. It's interesting you say that, but I came to that conclusion from the very beginning. You put the video on, clearly. And you said you liked the guy. Remember? You liked the guy. You liked the way he's delivering it and that, you know. But actually, yeah, he's just a cock, as you call him. That's it.
God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. You are absolutely correct. You were like, well, he does believe he's on a globe anyway, and we just shouted you down. Well, as it transpires, that is retrospectively correct. It's just some typical glober who's prepared to sink to his knees and acknowledge the nonsensical contradiction in terms that is horizontal, parallel, directionality in the form of a compass, working with respect to a curved surface. No. But you can chuckle and awkwardly laugh about how spherical Earth is and then turn around and tell someone like me I don't understand. That's why he said those words. Baseless assertion. Well, because he's already sunk to his knees. So you just don't understand how easy it is to sink to your knees for YouTube and acknowledge what you were trained with at school in the science class, in spite of it absolutely defying what he understands in principle when he's sniffing his own farts in his smug way, getting away with having a nice jolly old time talking about how flat Earth gets measured by him. Because should it ever come up, how does this work on a globe? He'll say, these horizontal parallel planes, they bend. Won't you, Wayne?
Yeah, here. And like I said, last Friday's critique of him was, You know, you didn't get the round of applause. You're getting it now. I tried to do it, but it was just too noisy. But yeah, excellent. And he deserves everything you're giving him. Everything.
Oh, no one's listening to me do it. He can shrug it off, right? But all those people back in the theatre industry who had to get on their knees at one time, they'll never forget. Yeah, they'll have always been on their knees in front of some wanker that they don't want to like and don't want to do what they're asked to do, but they're still on their knees anyway, aren't they? Spineless cucks. Now, people on the audience side of this might hear this and go, that's disgusting. You're like, yeah, it is. It's gross and icky. And that's how it makes you feel when you're that type of person. Now, most of the people here have got this in common. We're not like that. Now, out in society, people want you to be like them. Well, I'm just a snivelling, bootlicking cocksucker. And if you're not, then you don't understand. Yeah, we do. It's just wrong, and we won't accept that wrongness. What's that? I'll be persecuted for not accepting how wrong it is. Yeah, it seems to be the case that is how the world works. Cuck to what we tell you, or we'll persecute you. What's that? You've cucked? Oh, go on, you can have your 100,000 subscribers then. You could talk about how flat Earth gets measured and sniff your own farts about how non-controversial it is. No one will tell you that you need your kids taken off your wane, because you've been on your knees, haven't you, son? Yeah?
Yeah, but what if it's a woman? So he's been on his knees licking out. Is that right?
Say again. What did you say? Say again.
I said, what if he's having to, you know, his superiors are women? Then he'd be licking out rather than sucking on.
Oh, no. It's always sucking off. You don't know the theatre industry. It's a lot of homosexuals. Anyway, that's not the point. The analogy stands true regardless of who it is you're cooking to. Doesn't matter if the entire team at YouTube are all women. You know, the analogy still stands, right? The bottom line is, you as a map channel talking to Wayne has to cuck to the nonsense waffle of sphericity. He can't get away with it. Whether he likes it or not, he has to cuck to that nonsense. He's got to say, Earth does work with these flat measurements spherically. That's what he's got to do to get along, to get by. Yeah? Oh, okay. Fair enough. That's the choice that you, the audience, also has to make. That's to say, you have a spine and go, yeah, I'll have to cope if other idiots tell me I'm wrong as a consequence of me understanding how flat Earth gets measured. It might be the case that because I appreciate that does, as Jin puts it, mean Earth's flat, not that it needs to be put into a logical consistency. An apple's an apple. But if it does, and you appreciate you might get ridiculed for it, it means that at least you've got a spine. Yeah, you can moan about it like I do all day long, right? But there's the other alternative, which is you get on your knees, right? I've used this acknowledgement, right? But my example has you getting on your knees for me when I say Earth's measured flat. But what I should be pointing out is they've already been on their knees, yeah? You're on your knees for the hard place. How appropriate. The hard place where you say, yeah, those flat measurements that I want to use, I just forget I used them. Now I'm going to remind you about what you had to do. You had to get on your knees to walk straight past those flat Earth measurements that Wayne talks about. How parallel planes of reference will give you accurate heights on a vertical datum. Yeah, you've got our flat Earth, though. What's that? It works on a ball. There are parallel curves. Yeah? Yeah, on your knees. Oh, you already have been? Yeah, you all have. Yeah, me, I'm never going to be in that position. You're never going to catch me on my knees. Cucking to some authority that tells me something that's black is white. Well, you don't like me saying that this black thing's white? On your knees. You want to get along? Don't rock the boat. Me, I'm a boat rocker, right? And everyone around me. That's what we all here have in common. Yeah? We're not going to lick boots and suck dick. All right, the world says that parallel planes are curving. Well, then you are an idiot. What's that? I need to be told that my kid should be taken away. I guess that's the price I have to pay. We're not sucking dick. like Dave McKeegan's had to do, like Jaren's doing currently. Yum, 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 right, Jaren, you cocksucker. You're all the same spineless, pathetic weasels on your knees, licking boots. That's what you're doing when you cuck to this nonsense waffle that makes no sense when reference to how Earth is actually measured. But if you can bullshit, you can say, yeah, this flat Earth measurement works on a sphere, definitely, then you'll be all right? Yeah? Yeah, you'll know. It's one of those skeletons that you shove in the closet that you wish wasn't there. When you go, no, the decisions I make are inconsequential. I'm just a little speck of dust on a tiny little dot flying around the sun in an ever-expanding infinite soup of nothingness. So it don't matter if I've been on my knees and sucked a bit of dick, because it's in that closet and no one's going to ever see. And you know why you hate me? Because I make you remember. That's the real reason you all hate me. Yeah? Because I remind you of what a pathetic cocksucker you all are, you spineless bunch of cowards.
Absolutely, Nathan. Absolutely. That is it. For me, no matter how much ridicule they're going to try and douse on me, it always backfires on them. They're the worst off every single time. I go in there as Mr. Polite, ladies and gentlemen, because that's the way you get your best results. But if they want to rough and tumble, it's always going to come off worse for them. For I'm bringing the truth. So how am I going to go down on my knees? How am I going down when I'm bringing the truth? You can be sure that they are bludgeoning themselves on me is what's going on there. Okay? And I love it when they go down that road. But I'm Mr. Amicable. That's the way I am, because that's the way you're meant to be. That's how I was brought up. Be polite, respect people when you meet them, and everything goes along nicely. But when you get these idiots, when they try, and the idiots, these are the ones who are trying to push the globe and say that I'm wrong, and then they start throwing insults, as Nathan says. The truth is just all I need, and it's all over for them. Facts, numbers, perfect, without the foul language, and they still go down. And then when I do the foul language as well, they don't even get up. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's how I deal with these people when they come along.
Well, and that's what happens when you're coming up against the big guys in the Christian world, who are the young earth versus old earth creation. And both of them are theistic heliocentrists, from one of my other tags. There are Christians that believe in the denomination of heliocentrism. And they believe in it. They believe in the globe earth because they have no proof. And then along comes the boy who points to the king and says, no clothes. And they use some big sciencey term like the first or second law of thermodynamics or inverse square law, and they know what the hell that is. They better know what it is, but they're embarrassed because they've had to cuck so much they can't even humble themselves to realize that everything that they've been taught and that they've been preaching to others, false doctrine, especially to Christians, when they say, oh, God is such a great, wonderful God. Look at all of this that he created. So big and vast. Your God is I've had Christians tell me, your God is so small and so insignificant that you think he only made this little enclosed little snow globe. How sad is that? That burns my chaps.
That's projection.
And that's one thing you've taught me. Everything is projection. That's what's kept me going. And that's what still makes it fun for me. Because one, I've finally humbled myself to get away from the Feast of Nonsense arguing. No offense, Jen. But for me, I've totally wiped that out. And I have a small group of friends who we discussed it. We've got an apologetics little group that we discuss how to present this the truth without being a jerk about it, and while still staying scriptural, and basically ministering to Christians who are deceived and who don't know the truth and are rejecting the truth in unrighteousness when they say that God did this wonderful thing with the Big Bang. The atheists are wrong about the Big Bang because of the first law of thermodynamics, but God somehow did it. It's like, dude, he made the sun on the fourth day, not the first. How does that work on your globe? But
that's why the show remains relevant, Flat Earth Debate, that is, and important. So previously we've moaned at our fellow Flat Earthers because we have a quote-unquote silver bullet. People have been asking for ages, well, what have you got that could just immediately prove Earth's flat? Well, we give it them, and suddenly it's not enough. That's why discussing this with someone like Jin, yourself, anybody else who's on the panel, in terms of, well, where are we at? Why is it still difficult, even though we've got a silver bullet? Earth's measured flat. It's how it has been, is now, and always will be measured. Therefore, that should be the end of it, but isn't. What do we have to assess moving forward? We have to assess the psychology of what's been put in place to prevent the discussion coming to this head, to this point. I'll try and phrase my words a bit carefully. And in that process, we're realising that there's people who stand against us that only want to argue for or against a ball. And when they hear that Earth's measured flat, we just start being a reminder of what they've had to cook to when they're arguing for a ball. Those moments of disbelief where you can't square the circle of parallel planes working spherically, and you have to go, I'm just going to accept this and go along to get along. I don't want to rock the boat. All those things that you're going to shove in a little closet and think, I'll never remember that again, until someone like us comes along, and then we remind them of that. We hold a mirror up to their rather pathetic behaviour. And they will want to brace even harder against us, won't they? Because we're just going to be pointing out their ineptitude, showing their lack of humility, showing the embarrassing decisions that they've made in the past through being spineless. We're just a reminder of all of those things, rather than being thanked. Oh, all right, thanks. You know what? You're right. We just measure it flat because we do. No. You need to understand how spherical it is. Do I? No, I don't. You're projecting what you need to do to justify your whys and wherefores and reasons and decisions that you've made. I made different decisions when it came to those circumstances. In this instance, I looked at it and went, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's obviously not that then. That doesn't make any sense. Well, I better not rock the boat.
Nathan, can you do the that Wayne does and say he's been on his knees again? Go ahead.
He's a fart sniffer, Wayne. I mean, you've got to be honest. As much as you say I like the guy, I was still using derogatory terms against him for calling him a fart sniffer. This is rooted in this reasoning, right? You just don't know why there's something about the person you're talking about that makes you feel like you need to talk about them in derogatory terms. In the case of Wayne, yeah, fart sniffer, yeah, bum crack liquor, more like.
Please, do the bit. I love it.
Anyway, yeah, so we're always going to be a constant reminder of people's ineptitude, bad decision making, lack of spine, all those things. We're going to constantly remind them, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And me as an all-rounder, ladies and gentlemen, I'm always going to be rolling into the feast of nonsense because that's what they're bringing. I'm old school, but I do understand the new school and I do apply it. But I do find that 9 times out of 10, I'm having to explain it a little bit more elaborated because the question is still tough. And I don't mind. I'm an all-rounder. I'm there to help them understand that point. And I'm prepared to spend an hour, 2 hours doing that because I've got the time to do that. And I do that. And I do love it. And it does work. That's the thing. Yeah. And that's with the newbies, of course. I'm not talking about the seasoned Globers that we meet on the circuit. Yesterday, I debated one about the moon landing hoax nonsense, and I destroyed him with all the facts he ran out of energy and steam. Jin was just getting into his stride after an hour and a half. Okay? And I took the win. Everyone was clapping. Good job, Jin. Because everybody just went quiet. They didn't have all the necessary knowledge. We know how it's not possible to go, and that's why I put on the table how it is impossible. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm reminding the listeners that Earth is measured flat, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you ever forget that. Measured and utilized flat. So there is no way we're going to this place. But let's just entertain these wallies who think they can go there. This is how we know they cannot go there. Because they seem to be whistling past the graveyard, if you will, with the main facts that we've given them. But let's entertain their silly little journey that they think they went on. Yeah. And I just totally, that's what I mean. I love that because it gives my brain a chance to work. Okay. And I'm showing them actually, or giving them the links, speaking the links out, and then telling them where to get the information from. And go and have a look for yourself at this situation. So you know, it's good to know it. Know it properly, fully. Yes.
So you're going to take this light in the sky, whose position can only be described with respect to a flat plane, talk about traveling through an area that is oppositional to what we understand as space, because space is relative to a flat plane, and then destroy that.
And destroyed the belief, hopefully waking up hundreds of people if they're listening to the live stream there and realizing it, especially, and obviously won't be hundreds, but you know what I mean? They'll be thinking, oh, wow. Oh, well, he did give me those links. Let me go and check those links out. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what we do. You have to do that. It's all part of the awakening for these people. Not for you. You already did that. You've been through it. You've been in it 10 years, let's say. And you know this stuff. You're at the stage where you don't want to do that, perhaps. That's fine. Take a load off, relax, put your feet up. I'll do it. I'm loving it still, mate. 10 years, I'm not burnt out at all. Not fed up at all. So I'm ready. And it's been very, very enjoyable. Go ahead.
That was non-responsive.
Yeah, it was completely non-responsive. That's not what he asked. John's asking you about going to a place that utilizes flat Earth prerequisites whilst ignoring the flat Earth prerequisites.
Yeah, I did see what he did there, but I did mention to you that I'm always, whilst I'm doing that, I'm reminding them periodically that we are living on a flat Earth that is measured flat. So that's always being mentioned through that, because as I've said, people are thinking they're on a globe, blah blah blah, and that's how they know that we went to the moon, crap like that. And last weekend, yesterday, in fact, I enjoyed it. Yeah, an hour and a half of concise information whilst pushing the flat Earth at the same time. So I'm going to do that. And I didn't really ignore the flat Earth stuff because I brought that into the mix. Or doing an hour and a half, 3 or 4 times. So maybe even more than that, because I was really getting in there, because it's necessary to do that. Obviously, it is definitely necessary to get that message across to the people that it's impossible, because we're living on a flat Earth that is utilized and measured flat. I had to say that as well. I was compelled to. It was necessary. So, okay. And I do that. I don't mind.
Fair enough.
I'm always going to do that.
I want to implore the audience and ask their opinion on this, because what I've been describing metaphorically is building a bridge between us and the normies. Now, in the case of Wayne, the mapping guy, right, that bridge is still very much getting bricked up as we cross the river metaphorically to his side of Normieville. Now, Normieville, at the moment for him, has involved cucking to the globe establishment in terms of suggesting that things that axiomatically require flat planes of reference for directionality work in a spherical nature. Now, that doesn't change the fact that he still lives with the privilege of not being suggested to have his kids taken off him while we do, whilst covering the same subject. So that bridge is inevitably going to get built. It's just we need to, as we are doing literally today, thrashing out the whys and wherefores of what stands in our way while we do that. Today's highlighting the fact that there's going to be a mirror held up to these people in terms of some of the decisions they've made to be a bootlicker, to keep it clean. And that means that they're going to defend the people they've licked the boots of. Yeah, nobody wants to admit that they've been pushed into being abused by their abuser. And that's the situation. Most people will be embarrassed. They don't like us laughing at them for it. perhaps they see it as justifiable that we should be the ones ridiculed, given that they've had to sink to their knees to be in the position that they're in. So that does, in a small way, hinder that bridge being built between us and Normieville, where they measure Earth flat anyway. Earth still measured flat anyway. We're talking about a social, not faux pas, what's the word? Roadblock, not even roadblock, that's too severe. Stumbling point, let's call it. A social stumbling point that doesn't in any way affect how Earth is dealt with. Yeah, this bridge between being a flat earther and justifiable in terms of the ridicule that we receive, and being a potentially bit of a cuck normie in the case of Wayne, you know, cucking to, well, yeah, South works on a globe. Does it? Okay. Well, you've had to do that, not me. But it doesn't change that both of us are measuring Earth flat. Both of us are covering the same subject. And therefore, it won't always be the case that it's tolerable to mock and ridicule somebody because they've been brought to a subject through conspiracy when they talk about how Earth is measured flat, versus sucked a bit of dick to talk about how Earth is measured flat. We'll get there. The bridge will get built eventually. We'll normalise how flat Earth is and capable of being measured in that exact manner, as it always has been. We will normalise it. It's not too far away.
It's definitely getting, Nathan, it's definitely getting there. Because there are some regular flat earthers who are using that terminology now, and that's good. So, no, I've got all confidence in that's definitely going to be happening. That's definitely going to be, as I said, I used the words fundamental, because it is. For me, it's fundamental that they know that. Okay, and these videos that we're critiquing, I'm using them to the greatest extent, because these normies, I said, look, this is a man who's actually measuring the Earth flat. He's not measuring curvature. Look at the language he used. You watched it 10 minutes. Did he mention curvature? No, right. So what does that mean to you? It means that he's working on the flat Earth and doesn't realize he's living on it. Now do you get it now? Are you seeing it now? Okay.
I am and I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't see this Wayne guy as a normie. Right? There's a new term, isn't there? There's a new group of people. He can be initially perceived as just a normie, but he's not. He's a globe cuck.
He's a globe bootlicker is what he is. Globe bootlicker. Yeah, cock if you like. But, you know, I've been calling them those names all the time anyway, from time to time anyway, so... But I just love it that we're at this point now, and I'm able to utilize the material we've been using here. But I still have to go through, unfortunately, I still have to go through the Feast of Monsters. I don't mind that, though. That's the thing. I do like it. So it's okay for me. It's part of my repertoire. I don't mind. But I'm still bringing them around to that fact. And that's you know, Nathan, you've armed me is what you've gone and done. That's what you've gone and done. I'm telling you now. You know, when we did the in-flight telemetry data, I flogged all the flat earthers with that as well, because I said I don't want to hear any flat earthers losing the discussion or debates about flights proving that we're living on a flat earth, okay? Right? People have taken the time to do the work. They've done it. Look at the material and start using it. That's what I'm like. So please be aware that I am actually using the material now, okay? And I'm loving it.
Sure. Well, I mean, the focus came off you and went on to this Wayne guy temporarily, actually. So it's more the case that this particular dude originally was being described as just a normie who's getting away with talking about Earth being flat. But now we're saying, oh, no, this guy's not a normie. This guy, this Wayne guy, has had to sink to his knees at some stage, you know, conform. And that's a different category. You know, there's a different category out there that's being formed. I mean, we'll come up with better name than Globe Cook. But that's what he's had to do. And you just don't know what you don't know until somebody comes along and goes, well, actually, he had a video about a compass where he's talking about how it works on a globe. Like, yeah, there was me thinking, requesting that we cover normies. Well, he's not, is he?
I would offer that I don't think that he became a globe cuck. And yeah, you're right. We need a new name for this. Until that video you guys first did, the trig points, that was like 10 years old or something, wasn't it? But I'm looking at the video. We sent the link to the live chat, but I don't know if it took. It's called Great and Small Circle Navigation. and from the map reading company. So great and small circle navigation. This was only done just December of 24. So I seem to remember that the trig points thing was much older. So I think people like this are not thinking, they're just intrinsically believing they're on a globe. You can't help it. The globe's everywhere. It is the greatest, most ubiquitous graven image idol ever. It is everywhere. It's in logos and it's in everything. We can't help but just be soaked in it for our whole lives. So I don't think we malevolently, believe in the globe like a religion. But when we are challenged for our worldview, to explain our worldview, give the apologetics for our particular worldview, then and only then is when we start to see the penny drop, so to speak, or we really do think about what we know and what we think we know about what we believe. And that's when you have your come to Jesus moment, to use another metaphor, where you have to humble yourself, if you can, to be able to reject everything you believe true. Once you do that, though, once you take the ticket, once you commit, that's when you cuck. That's when you take the ticket. That's when you bow to the devil. That's when you are going full-fledged into denial of what is true, what you know is true, and keeping it from other people by giving them deceptions, which includes some truths here or there. That's how the devil works. And that's how the world works when the devil is the god of this world. And so, I think it's 2024 is when he took the ticket. And if you watch this video, it is absolutely stupid.
Should we do that? Should we cover that tomorrow?
Well, sure. It's only about 11 minutes long. And it's, I'm watching it now. It's just him sitting in front of a mud bog, a little thing, trying to explain how great circles work with shadows. I don't know. I'll try to get it into the chats. So, but you can look at it and see if you want to do it tomorrow.
Shout out to Iron26. This is what's Jeebus got to do with Flat Earth FSS. I'm not going to completely put the kibosh on those conversations. Iron26, as obviously Surf Daddy's trying to relate it back to our relatively coherent discussion about how this relates on a flat Earth scale to people who we falsely identified as normies, which going to try and find an analogy and an example where somebody's describing themselves as a helio-Christian. That's Surf Study's way of trying to bring it back to the flat Earth subject. So I'm not going to moan at him too much, although I prefer not to have the live show cluttered up with some of the Christian discussion topic points. But in this case, we've got the discussion of sucking D, being a bootlicker. Surf Daddy described it as taking a ticket from the devil, or I can't remember how he described it. And I'm glad he has. You've got to be subservient to an evil force. And in this case, we're describing where Wayne, at some point, has got on his knees and gone, yeah, okay, I'll cut to this nonsense, even though it don't make sense. I'll go along to get along. And it might be very recently. Now, if it is December, it might be the case that actually is after we've come along, pointed him out last time as a normie, and then maybe after the fact people have gone in his comments and gone, how's this work on a globe? Because they want him to be like them. So they want him to be their guru of how it works on a globe, so they don't have to look in their closet. So it's just passing it down the line. Passing the evil can along, kicking the evil can down the road, right? So at some point, late in the day, he's taken that ticket, right, Surf Daddy?
Yeah. To be clear, it was December 18th of 24. So it would be in 24 instead of 25.
Oh, right. So it's not. Okay, gotcha. I missed that. Okay, yes. So it's more than a year ago. So no, it's not influenced by us. So we don't have any guilt in this regard. I can't turn around and go, oh, that's awkward, because it's as a consequence of me pointing out how flat he measures Earth that he's decided to take that ticket. Whereas in reality, he took it long before we came along. Yeah. So I had no part in forcing him on his knees to cuck to the YouTube algorithmic love that he'd need to be in alignment with when describing how flat only tools work with spheres we're not standing on.
Right. He actually got a sincere question from one of his audience about how directions work on a globe. He's now cutting up an orange so that he can peel apart the orange. So it might be kind of fun to go through and just toddle through and probably have a little pity for him.
I don't think, just on reflection, right, I don't think it will be, because suddenly it turns him into something I didn't think he was, right? If you're describing him as peeling back an orange to explain how the segments can be flat but both curved at the same time, yeah, it sounds abysmal, but it sounds very anti-flat Earth, doesn't it? That's what they do. And I don't want to cover anti-flat Earth videos. If there's a video where he has to be a flat earther on his knees, I don't necessarily want to cover that. I want to cover normies.
I only to interrupt because on that specific point, I am looking at it and his nervous laughter that he's sincerely trying to show how this works. It's not anti-flat Earth. He's really trying to teach people how this supposedly works. Just like a teacher at school, right? Teachers at schools aren't anti-flat earthers, and they're not, heliocentric cucks to the powers that be. They're just teaching what they're told to teach.
That's
and
cucking.
They're trying to get back to their ability.
Yeah, if it doesn't make sense. If you're describing in an orange, I already know what he's describing. He's trying to get to what's on screen now, right? In a globe on a globe, as we used to phrase it, to keep it nice and concise. Yeah, I can already picture what he's doing. It doesn't mean that he has to cuck to some flat earther that's saying it as a result and a consequence. He's then produced that video. He can do that off his own back because he's got a belief in a ball that he's been given from birth that he needs to cuck to. So at some level, he understands that he must cuck to this nonsense and make it work on a globe, in a globe, with a segmented orange as the description. But that is still anti-flat Earth. That is the rhetoric of somebody who's coming along that says, this doesn't work on a ball. Now you're saying, well, the commenter asked in good faith, but how is it any different to a flat earther saying, how does this work on a globe then? That's what flat earthers do. Now I want to steer away from that, which is to say that if that is what he's done, even if the commenter originally was in good faith rather than some flat earther asking him to do it, it's still an anti-flat earth video that I don't want to cover. I want to cover normies. So, yeah, last week we didn't cover the guys who were doing the celestial navigation whilst on the ocean without GPS. Well, I'll cover that next. Because why would I want to cover Wayne? It's almost like I'm pouring salt on some old wound when we find him. We actually come in, we open his closet, metaphorically, and see him on his knees. That's awkward. Hilarious, but awkward. I don't want to cover that.
He's doing surgery on oranges and he's cutting it. What's the map that it's got all the slices spread out into ovals or whatever. But he's literally taken an orange peel and surgically turned this into a flat skin. So yeah, it is. I agree. I wouldn't do it. It would only just be for entertainment and just to kind of show his embarrassment and his inability to actually do apologetics for what he believes is true.
Gotcha. I don't want to cover those. I don't want to cover the apologetics from anti-flat earthers, in this case Wayne, even if generally speaking he's just covering how Earth is measured flat. I just want to cover how flat Earth is measured. Full stop. So in most of the videos that we've covered from that guy so far, or the ones I've looked at, he's just saying it as it is. He's calling an apple and just describing what an apple is. Not explaining how an apple's not an orange by opening up an orange and showing you how flat it is inside. I don't want to cover that. So yeah, I want to make normal what is normal. Now, we've made the normal abnormal, or ignored normality to make the normality work spherically. Like, okay, right, yeah, we've got to measure Earth flat. Yeah, okay, we've got to get our height off surface level. Okay, yeah, we've got to have an axiomatic parallel eye level. But if you unfold this orange, sod all that. Let's just go to the next man who's measuring Earth flat and show how Earth is measured flat and it is just normal. Not, well, we found somebody who's measuring Earth flat, it is just normal. But check it out. He actually had to get on his knees prior and cuck to the nonsense that doesn't make any sense so that he could happily, as a normie, sniff his own farts and describe how flat Earth gets measured. Let's just focus on when he described how flat Earth got measured and then move on to next man. Yes, people have to cuck.
I think part of that... Well, I think part of that is taking an is statement and turning it into an if statement.
Spot on.
That needs to stop.
Exactly. If he's taking what is a horizontal planar measurement and then saying, if Earth was a sphere, then, and move on to your orange dissection. Sod that. No, we're not going to turn a horizontal planar measurement or a directionality in the two-dimensional and say, if Earth was a sphere, then this is how that would work. It's like you've already described how it worked two-dimensionally. And that is how it works. That's how it's applied to Earth's surface. So why are we turning it into an if statement? Oh, yeah, so you can cuck to your belief. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of covering you Dave McKeegan saying, well, yeah, we measure it for simplicity flat, but that's because it's a really big ball. Why would I want to cover that? The next man's just going to be saying, here's how you draw out an elevation profile in Google Earth. Check it out. And he doesn't say, but if Earth was a ball, it doesn't need to, because he's just stating how flat Earth got measured. That's what I want to stick to. And I want to stick to my guns. Yes, it's been fun covering Wayne. Yes, it's been good reflecting on him. And what do you know? He's had to cuck. Yeah, okay. Moving on. Any more for any more? If not, I'll round out this live show.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, yeah. Even though you covered it on Friday, you gave a great critique of that video. It was time not wasted at all. I enjoyed every minute of it. So, well done. And yeah, okay, you didn't want to do that, but again, it's a necessity because you're giving him a spanking, and I enjoy that. Thank you very much.
Well, the spanking wasn't fair, though. My spanking was in regards to, why is it the case that Wayne can get away with talking about the exact same flat Earth measurements that we talk about without being asked to drink bleach? Why is that? Well, because he's already been on his knees at least a couple of times. That's why.
Good.
He's shown his obedience.
And that's good for the people to learn.
He's already shown his subservience to the cause, hasn't he? I don't want to focus on that. The subservience he had to show. Now I know the reason. Now I know why you find it boring, Wayne. All right, this is all very normal and boring. Now you had to get on your knees to be in the position you were in. You had to cuck to the nonsense waffle that didn't make sense. You didn't question it. You cucked to it. Then you got to live in your boring, fart-sniffing world where, well, this seems kind of mundane now, describing with millimetre accuracy how parallel planes work across the whole of Earth's surface with respect to a 0 point. Yeah, you can just say those statements of facts without anybody giving you any shit for it, right? Yeah, but there was a reason why you got to be where you were, and now we know why. Now, I'm not going to focus on that. I don't want to open the closet door of your disgusting behaviour in the past and go, check it out, look at him on his knees in his closet. Nah. Now, there's going to be next man who, like Wayne, just knows we measure Earth flat without any disclaimers being needed. Now, they might also have been on their knees prior to just be able to get away with talking about how flat they measure Earth. Maybe. Maybe they've got skeletons in their closet too. But I'm not focusing on the skeletons anymore. Sod that. Let's move on. Any more for any more? With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
Make up their globe Earth. or have they now just turned into disco ball earthers?
It's a good question, because I asked the same question. What is that distance of that locally flat? Someone said 100 miles. I just cracked up. So no curvature there then. They're 100 miles. Okay, good. There we go.
Locally is just interchangeable for measurably.
Yeah, they're saying it's measurably a flat Earth, but then that's admitting to the awful truth that they've had to cuck to all these years. So they changed the word measurably to locally. Oh, it's just a locally flat Earth. Like, yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. There's no difference. Oh, no, it's very different when I say locally. I mean, it's actually a ball when we measure it flat.
Yeah, so the phraseology of locally is just them kidding themselves.
Tacit acceptance of how flat they must measure it, while simultaneously retaining an air or a semblance of justification for believing it's a ball. Yeah, we measure it flat, but that's only local. Not really. Okay, well, you just measure it flat. Yeah, but only locally. Yeah, locally is like how far you can see to measure it. You're not going to not measure locally.
Yeah, they're partially admitting it. That's what they're doing. And that's good. They'll fully admit it very soon, this year.
I love it when Globers say that science is stuff that's measurable, observable, testable, and stuff like that. Measurable. Let's start there. How'd you measure that? Locally. Oh no. Perfect.
Oh yeah. What they're inferring is that when you do it non-locally, then you get curvature. What would be what I'm not sure what the methodology for non-local measurement is.
No, they also say that they don't use a horizontal plane of reference. You establish the horizontal by the vertical, which is perpendicular to gravity. So you're establishing a horizontal then, right? Well, it's an imaginary horizontal.
Well, the gravity they're appealing to establish the horizontal is only applicable on an inertial plane.
Yeah, but it's an imaginary one. That's the tangent. See, that's how you get to your horizontal frame of reference. It's not from the surface. It's from the plumb line, from the perpendicular to gravity, to gravity's pull.
No, but gravity, Newton's gravity, the one they're appealing to, the force of gravity, is only applicable to an inertial plane.
Yeah, I point that out, and they just run away from it and say that my truth statement of every measurement requires a horizontal plane of reference. They don't like that plane of reference thing. And then I point out that their plane of reference is established with 90 degrees to your imaginary tangent line. And all horizontals are parallel from that line. And that's geometry. And I just send them a picture of two lines, perpendicular lines, and one line is labeled vertical, one line is measured horizontal. I said, there it is. There's your geometry.
Well, it's not an imaginary tangent line. It's a mislabeled tangent line. It's sea level, surface level. That's the line that they're using.
We measure
but
sea level. They
call it a tangent and put a curve below it.
Right. That's what when you say level, they have said specifically, and then they always infer after that level means perpendicular to gravity on the curve of the Earth, and that's as far as they go, and they try to argue away from it. And I just keep pointing out that I'm still right. It's still horizontal line you have to establish in order to measure anything.
Right. So when they're saying that level is not horizontal, they're using level as horizontal to say that level is not horizontal. It's a cluster screw at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's all because of Webster's dictionary. They give the citation. Webster's dictionary. It is horizontal, or that perpendicular to gravity, and it just so happens that gravity is way down in the center of the Earth, and that's the horizontal. And yeah, it is a cluster screw. And the true anti-flat earthers that are just apoplectic, that I keep mentioning this horizontal plane of reference, they just cog this.
Well, I don't know if it's going to really get through. When they say conforming to the curvature of Earth, that is to have a point lower than another point, changing at a set rate of not zero. That doesn't give you perpendicular.
No, it does not. That's usually, though, where it stops for someone like that just can't accept that they have to have a real horizontal surface in order to measure deviation from horizontal. And I just say, so your horizontal is curved then, right? And they just short circuit.
You don't have to have a real horizontal surface. Like we implement, there's no real horizontal surface when you're building a deck. The deck's not there. You got to establish it. So you don't have to have a real horizontal surface.
Oh, but that's local. That's a deck. Nah, that's local. That's.
So once that deck's finished, it's not horizontal?
No, you don't have to have a horizontal surface to reference in order to establish it. Otherwise, we would never be able to, we wouldn't be able to build things unless it was already there. It just didn't make sense.
But horizontal is an orientation with respect to Earth, right?
Yeah, but it maybe, I don't know, maybe, but it's distinct from the Earth. It's just right there in the air. Or otherwise, we wouldn't be able to create a horizontal surface.
With what?
It doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. It was just the statement that we have to have a horizontal surface to reference in order to establish a deviation from it. That would make it impossible to build something unless it was already built.
Yeah, but it's got to be parallel with what?
What has to be? The deck has to be parallel with any other, horizontal you've established.
Right, the horizon.
Yeah, that would be the Earth horizon. Yeah,
parallel.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Yeah,
it would have to be parallel with the Earth.
I'm not arguing that would be a consequence of it, but I don't need the horizon to build a deck. That would be crazy.
No, but you need a level that is parallel.
Yeah, it will be. I mean, it is parallel. Yeah, I mean, it just is.
Right?
Yeah, because you ensured that it was. You made it
level.
Yeah. By using the tools that were derived from the flat Earth in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Oh, I get a lot of the other stuff for sure, 100% on board. It's just to say that, I don't even remember. It's just so far gone now. It was something about you need to have a horizontal surface to, a priori in order to make measurements. But we do that when there's no surface. We do it in areas where there is no horizontal surface present. So that just can't be the case.
Right. But the tool was created using the horizontal surface. You recognize that, right?
Yeah, the tool is anywhere you put it. Yeah, it's going to anywhere you put it. You can, and then you got to extend it.
Right. So the tool was created using the horizontal plane as your reference. Then you can take that tool anywhere on Earth where you can't see the horizon and utilize it as a parallel. Oh, you still needed that horizontal plane of reference to begin with.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's people who would take the position that you can just use the vertical, which you can. I mean, I agree. You can definitely use the vertical as the plane of reference.
The vertical is an elevation angle 90 degrees with respect to the horizontal plane. How are you going to get a vertical? What is vertical?
Yeah, but I don't know. Her vertical is not an elevation angle of anything. Her vertical is just a line.
It's a direction on the y-axis.
It's a 90 degree. Yeah, it's a 90 degrees to the horizontal. That's what a vertical is. You establish that by dropping the plumb bob when looking at the horizon, the horizontal plane, where sea level appears to meet the sky, and you can establish that as 90 degrees to the plane of reference. And from there, you can go other places and drop that plumb bob and say, that's 90 degrees to the plane of reference. You still needed the plane of reference. Just to say vertical.
You're always going to need it.
Is to
you're always going to need it.
Yeah. It's just to ignore what was axiomatically required. No.
I guess I'm kind of asking, why are we giving priority to the horizontal? Why does that have some kind of
because everything else that we build has been established from it, including the tools we use. Including the tools we use, this is how we know, because the tools that we use for horizontality has come from God's flat earth, horizontal, constant everywhere. We got that from the tools we're using, and that's what we're using to sustain that. Otherwise, we'd have our buildings toppling over.
Yeah, but the thing that was put is that they're perpendicular. So why does horizontal get priority?
Well, you wouldn't be sure that it's perfectly horizontal. Yeah, you got to make sure it is, and you need the horizontal baseline to ensure. Because when you check, you need the horizontal. Without it, you cannot be checking accurately.
Yeah, but I could just say the same thing. I could say without the vertical, I would have nothing to check against. So why does the horizontal have priority?
Well,
it's the baseline. That's why everything starts from there.
The horizon is how all tools were created initially. That's how they were calibrated initially. Everything has been built on that.
Yeah, bottom upwards.
You can't dig out your foundation and throw it out. Yeah.
Yeah, bottom upwards. We didn't start in the air. We started from the ground. Sea level, mean sea level, zero sea level, zero level. That's where we started from. So that's why it's paramount.
I mean, that is a good point. That's not a bad one, right? But I could just say that actually the vertical was the first thing that was necessary to establish it, which was the guy standing there vertically. That was primary because he needed to be vertical first in order to look at the horizon.
Get in the cage. Let's have it out.
You can establish horizontal without the vertical. You can just use sea level where it appears to meet the sky. There is your horizontal without a vertical. Vertical requires a perpendicular plane of reference. Else you just have a line in free space relative to nothing.
I agree with some of it. But yeah, I think the relationship is necessary. Like immediately, the relationship has to be there. And it was just that.
Right.
It was just that.
Fine if you want to just accept that. If you don't want to accept how they got, that's fine. But you do need to understand they're axiomatically tied. Vertical and horizontal are tied together. You don't get one without the other.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly. I'm saying there is no one or the other that is more. Is better. There's no one that's better than the other. They're axiomatically tied into one thing.
No, they're tied together, but one.
Right, but the horizon doesn't have a vertical.
One is tied directly to Earth's surface as something that's described the axiom, in this case the horizontal, is formed with the surface. Doesn't mean that that horizontal takes priority. It's like, no. These two things, you're correct, are intrinsically linked to one another and always will be. But in terms of reference to Earth's surface, you can't just reference the horizontal. The axiom's formed with something that utilised the ground at the horizon to describe that axiom in the first instance with. Is everyone else on the panel picking up what I'm trying to put down in the live shows? Because I've got a vague idea of where I'm trying to go, and I just don't. I feel like I'm not necessarily communicating it very well because I don't know how to communicate it because we haven't thrashed out how to communicate what I'm trying to get across. So I'm kind of in a catch-22.
I get it, and Sir F Daddy gets it. You're arguing tag from the from Flat Earth.
I want to normalize it. I just don't know how to put it into words. I'm describing it as a bridge. When I'm stuttering around describing a bridge between the normies measuring Earth flat, the kibosh is put on it when you go, this guy's not a normie. Wayne's not a normie. He's kowtowed to the sphericity that it doesn't make sense with. So you're like, okay, well, that bends the rules that I'm trying to get across to my audience. Not rules, but the destination that I'm trying to reach is the other side of the river, right? The other side of the river is normality where we just measure Earth flat without any consequence. I want to be in that place. I just don't know how better to describe it than I just have with a crap analogy of putting a bridge over a river. I can't think of any better words. We'll get there.
Yeah,
hopefully.
but I think the material you've done before the Wayne one was actually achieving that. But my question would be, you just want to say Earth is measured flat and that's it, right? But like I said, that's still going to be begging questions. People are going to ask you questions. What and when are you going to be saying that? At what point would you be uttering those words? When and why? Why would you be uttering it? When would you be uttering it? What would be the situation?
Well, that's what I want the normies for. So, but to show that is the fact, and it doesn't need any excuses or explanations or if statements produced from statements of absolute fact. When Wayne described the surveying done by Ordnance Survey, accurate to the millimetre on a vertical datum, the inference is all parallel planes for Earth's surface, and he doesn't even have to say that. It's inferred. Before any excuses for any ball, there's a stone-cold inference of Earth's flatness that doesn't need elaboration. He doesn't have to say, because it's flat. It's not necessary. He's just describing what is in terms of how it's measured. Now, in fact, it is measured flat. But that's where I want to be, as you're asking.
Okay, yeah. I've got a little bit more, but you want to be there informing the public that they're living on a flat Earth? Because that's what I want to get them to do that. And part of my methodology is going to be Earth is measured flat and utilized flat. That's why you're living on a flat Earth, because that's what I want to get across. Not just that. I don't just want to blurt out Earth's measured flat and hope that they get it.
But I'm saying something slightly different, which is it doesn't matter if they get it, it just is anyway. When Wayne's describing it, he's not waiting to the punchline where he gets to blurt out Earth's measured flat. He just describes how the maps are formed and how we surveyed the land. Do you see what I mean?
But he didn't say anything about it being globular either, though, did he?
Exactly. That's where I moan about the antithesis, where you said earlier, well, if we compare and contrast how there should be an Earth curve in the way, like, well, Wayne didn't have to do that either.
he wasn't trying to present it as flat Earth evidence. He was just stating how things are done, but not really going any further into it because of maybe the indoctrination that everyone's brought up to believe they live on a ball, but not thinking about it even when he's outlaying how it is utilizing the flat baseline.
That's right, Liam. Liam got it right on the nail on the head. That's exactly right, because he's putting out a video to indoctrinated people already, so they're not even going to question it, are they? You see, but people like us, this is why I'm going to use that material, and it's useful for me in waking people up, because I want to wake people up to the fact that they're living on a flat Earth. I don't want to just blurt out, Earth's measured flat, utilize flat, and that's it. Why would I be saying that to people? Because I want them to know they live on a flat Earth.
Because they just might happen to be like Wayne, describing how Earth gets measured.
Well, I'm not going to be like Wayne, because he would have sucked a few knobs to get there. I'm not doing that.
Sounds a lot more crude when you say it.
I think once you actually mention the words flat Earth or globe Earth, then that's what talks the whole thing up, because that puts the image or the character of what people think of when they hear the words flat Earth or globe Earth or something like that. Wayne didn't mention globe Earth because he wasn't trying to make the point that we're specifically on a globe Earth. He was just doing the measurements. That's what I would call, truth. He's just showing how it's done. It's like the truth of geometry, vertical and horizontal. Every time, whoever it was talking, the tank or whatever, every time he said vertical or horizontal, that is geometrically what is true. The implications of that vertical, just saying vertical or horizontal or the horizon, the implications of that being translated to the idea of quote unquote flat Earth is what sends people into cog dis, because they're thinking about their idea of the pancake in space and the nutters that talk about, Feast of Nonsense and stuff like that. When you're stating truth about things, I think adding pictures in people's minds about what that entails or what the consequences of those axiomatic things is what sets people off and makes them defensive. It's like me talking to Jason Lyle and saying, hey, why are you even talking about Big Bang or space? Because, natural law, the truth, makes that an invalid concept. Once you go there with the truth, then they have to deal with the consequences naturally. And they're going to lash out at you if you're, challenging their worldview by just mentioning that vertical and horizontal are axiomatically tied. And when you establish a horizontal, all horizontals are parallel. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, that means the Earth is flat. Oh, whoa there, partner. Pump the brakes. What do you mean? So it waking people up to quote unquote flat Earth is, I think, where the bridge construction is hampered a bit, because you're not just presenting what is true and letting it sink in and forcing them on their own to think about that stuff.
I'm going to reach it.
So,
sorry, they're never going to reach it that way. In my experience of 10 years, if I was doing that 10 years ago, Earth is measured flat, still going to require more explanation. That's what I say there, definitely, because people don't get it. And that's been my experience. They don't get it. Even when they're watching the Wayne, right? They're watching Wayne when he's telling them that he's measuring the earth flat. They're not hitting on it. Oh, that means I'm living on a flat earth. They're not hitting on that. So it needs to be elaborated, and I love this because this is the material for me that really seals the deal. The fact that Earth is measured and utilized flat. This is the capping stone, which is why you might be calling me old school, but I truly do know what a diamond that is that I've got in my hand, and I'm using it with great success in the last 2 months so far. You know, in the places I visit, it's been coming across beautifully.
If they don't understand that because Earth is measured flat, it had to be flat to measure it that way, it means that they're philosophically challenged at that point.
Yeah, because due to the indoctrination, John, the indoctrination that they received for several years.
Right.
And they didn't look into it, did they? That's why they don't get it at first. Right. You see? Yeah.
Well,
the Globers that I meet on the circuit, the hardcore, they know it's flat. But I'm talking about the normies now.
Yeah, not everyone's such
to educate them in what not is the way you give them a valid epistemology to work with. That's the only way to fix that.
That sounds like another issue. We'll get to you in a sec, Len. Where you said philosophically challenged. That's another category error, though, isn't it? To suggest that it needs some logical consistency applied to what is just a statement of fact is to put it into an if statement, or to take somebody who has taken a statement of absolute fact and decided that it could be an if statement is where you're suggesting a philosophical challenge. But again, the person wants to put these statements of facts and measurements into philosophy. We're not in a philosophical category. We're not in a science category. We're in a geography and maths category. But they want to say, well, if it's measured flat, does that mean it's flat? You're like, why are you putting this into a philosophical question?
Yeah, John.
And that's what I'm saying. Their ignorance is not going to be fixed by addressing what's not. See what I mean? Their inability to understand what reason and logic
disagree with that.
is not going to be fixed by telling them what is not true.
I would disagree with that greatly, John. I've been successful in doing that. That's why I would disagree with that greatly. And hence, what's his name? Park last week, Friday, asked, have you lot been, how often have you spoke to people? Because, you know, when you meet so many different types of people, you'll understand where we're coming from. That methodology is necessary and is used and utilized by me, telling them what it's not, because of what is a definite methodology that I will be continuing to use to the day I die.
Telling someone what's not to tell them what is doesn't make sense.
To you, it doesn't, but to the person who's indoctrinated, it does, because I'm telling them what is, right, whilst they're believing they're on something else. And then you explain to, because now you have to explain it because they don't get it. Then you lay down exactly how it is measured and utilize flat, back it up with some material. When the penny drops for them, you see, now do you get it now, mister? Aha. So we needed the flat earth all along for everything that's happened on our lives before we were born. Okay? There we are. So yes, it does work. It does work, John. Unfortunately,
what works?
Having to explain to somebody what is, and at the same time what isn't. What their belief isn't and cannot be true. In other words, it's that simple. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, that's what I'm going to continue doing. I've been successful, so it doesn't matter how you want to question it. I'm giving you the correct answers, whichever way you want to put the question. I'm always going to utilize that situation whereby I'm explaining to them what is, whilst at the same time explaining to them why it cannot be what they think it is, what they believe it is. And I've been very instrumental in getting that across to people and for them to succumb to the truth in the end. Thank you.
I'm not even sure. So you tell them what is.
Why wouldn't I tell him what is? Why wouldn't I tell him that? Tell me. I'm loving this. It is just right down my alley, because this is psychological avenue. I love it, mate.
Right.
Psychological avenue.
Psychological avenue.
Yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm at this. I was there myself, so I understand it pretty well. I understand how it's being utilized against the whole human race. So I understand that now. I can get into it now, and I do get into it. And that's how I help people. And sometimes you've got to tell them what is, and at the same time, you're telling them how it cannot be what they believe, and it works beautifully. You've got to take your time with them, show them, help them.
You got to, but the statement that you're disagreeing with is that for them to know what is, they have to know what is not.
They will come to realize what is not. They will come to realize what is not by the explanation of what is. Yeah.
And the what is not is their belief that they need shattering for all they know. Well, Map Guy's example. Well, I mentioned it earlier on with like saying he stated that this measurement over 200 miles only gave a millimeter discrepancy. But without the visualization of... Sorry, I'm not getting me point here, mate. I'll back out.
No, I feel your pain, right? Because I'm struggling, and so is John, right? Because Jin's just saying, well, what am I doing wrong? And it's like... Can't disagree with him. He's saying, no, if I just present flat earth measurements, the first thing that your average Joe does is say, well, I believed it was a ball. And we're like, yeah, but it isn't. And when we start discussing it, we'll immediately have to whistle past how flat we must measure it to have the discussion about how non-ball shaped it is. And it all just seems a bit wrong. Now, it's hard to explain that. And obviously, we're trying to do it with Jin going, well, I'm still doing it right. Well, you're not doing it wrong, and you're not doing it right either. I will say there's a better way. It's just I haven't figured it out yet, and we're on that path. That's why, even in the face of people saying, well, why would you still have a show? You've got your silver bullet, Earth's measured flat. Isn't that time to hang up your hat? Like, no, there's still issues. This is one of them.
I think the main issue is a lot of people aren't like striving for intellectual honesty and the truth. A lot of people are just living in a reality that they believe.
That's one point. And then there are different ways to get to people to there are many roads that are going to be required for the many people that are out there. They're not all going to get it at one hat doesn't fit all, as they say, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. That's where I come from.
Sure.
Thank you.
I agree, but at the same time, it's like... Go ahead, John.
That my way is best out of everyone's way, because it's the least resistant. Like, I've tested it. Other people who sees it happen can attest to what I'm saying. I don't think there's a better person in 24/7 or anywhere else that gets the kind of reaction or result that I get. I think I do it best. I could be wrong. You can challenge me on that. I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the sharpest person, but my results are clear.
Yeah, I can attest to that Eli does get some great responses and results from his methodology, and it's enjoyable to get through it. Once in a while, it get a little bit heated. Once in 20 times, maybe even 30 times. So, no, yeah, I'm gonna.
And that's only because flat earthers are jumping in with.
Yeah, you're fighting people like me jumping in.
Other way.
You know, the one time
you gotta when you're in many relationships in your life, the older you get, for me anyway, the more you realize, how do I get my message across without arguing with this person? Because arguing means it's just going to take more time, and we may not even get to a solution. So my first job for me in my worth of time is, can I communicate this message? So the method for figuring that out starts with communication. I don't just let them tell me what they want to tell me. First, I force them to understand that they're coming to me for something. They're trying to engage with me on something. Since that's the case, they want something from me. I'm not going to start opening my briefcase and then they're like, well, what about that over there? What about this? What? I'm going to close it back up and I'm going to say, were you sure you wanted to talk to me about what I thought? And any amount of resistance, I'm turning away. People usually stop me because they think it's unreasonable to treat someone that they've come to, right? And they'll go, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, my bad. I can't help myself. Because most of us can't help ourselves from jumping in to someone else's thoughts, right? When they're talking, trying to get things together. So people usually will apologize for doing that because they don't mean it. Anyway.
No, I agree with everything you said there. And that was executed earlier, about 4 hours ago, in the 24/7 when I was there.
Yes.
That situation arose, yeah. So there you go.
There's a want to, on a social level, appease the person you're speaking to. And I'm trying to get across that there's an inconsequential nature to what we're dealing with. That is to say, it doesn't matter if the person you're communicating with gets it or not. Earth's still measured flat. Therefore, it stops being a social consequence whether or not you can communicate your message to them. It's like, I'm not saying you have got an inability to do this, Eli, but if you did have an inability to communicate this message, it wouldn't make any difference to the message or what Earth is measured as. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, except for the fact that if Flat Earth comes up and they're bringing it up, then it can only make sense. Because when that comes up, whatever their cognitive functions bring them to, my beacon is going to be on, did you want to talk about that or not? Because I don't want to argue. Like, you're starting to say things to me, a stranger or a friend or a family member, that if this was some other conversation, it'd be kind of weird. You're talking to me in a way that you know I don't accept or respect. So let's think about this for a second. Did you want to have the conversation about flat Earth because you brought it up? And did you want to hear what I thought or not? Because it's cool. We don't have to argue.
Right. And that's kind of what I've been trying to get to, is sticking to the measurements, because that's the only thing that matters as it pertains to the nature of the surface of Earth.
But I think with the likes of the map guy, you should just say, right, you've just measured Earth flat. Leading with that then, so why do you still believe it's a ball? So they've got to fight against the flat evidence.
Why do you want them to fight against the evidence that they just gave?
Well, so they can break their own cognitive.
Yeah,
that's the thing I think Nathan is saying is hard, because we do have to address that. It's just, how do you address that without going into Globeland? And the answer is, leave it with them. When they start saying, well, look at this map and this, that, I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, yeah, that's how it works on a globe. I'm like, but you didn't tell me how. Because that's true. And they'll go, well, yeah, you're right. And I'll go, so explain it. Everything that you just told me about these measurements, explain to me what this has to do with the globe. Normally, people can't. And if you divert, I'm going to expose that in a way that is going to even give you humility. It's not going to be forced where it's like, I'm making you do it. It's going to be so subtle that you're going to feel like you have to do it. Because most times when I'm talking to people, other people are listening. I'm using the turn the other cheek approach. And for those that know what turn the other cheek Jesus actually meant. Which is, it's not to let somebody slap the living BS out of you. but it's to show people how unreasonable someone else's actions are next to yours.
I got to go, but I'm pretty much with Elijah on this. Keeping them on track is what we're trying to do.
See you later.
We got you.
Yeah, but we are getting there slowly but steadily. We're getting there, definitely. No doubt about it that the last few months, half a year of what you put down, it has begun to bear fruit in certain places I've gone to. People are beginning to use the terminology, and it's good. So, we just got to keep with it. No need to give up on it at all. Those bridges are being built. It will be normalized. But we've all got to get on it. That's the thing. And we're getting there. But I think there's going to be more than one road to getting there, is what my experience is telling me so far. I've had to go down many roads. What you guys call the Feast of Nonsense is where I live and enjoy with my napkin and knife and fork and dessert spoon.
For all of us on our journeys, there's been so many little things that we've looked into and figured out before we came to the bloody obvious conclusion that it was measured flat all along. But all those little things all added up and made us more and more certain of the facts of reality. So I don't think just one little snippet is going to change the mind of someone who is deep in belief.
Well said, Liam. That's why I call myself the all-rounder. Yes. Flat Earth Rambo, a.k.a. Flat Earth US Marshal in CBR1. I'm going to be all characters to all of these people. I love it. It's good. We're bringing up the truth.
Continue to be Liam for you there, Jin.
Say that again?
Continue to be Liam for you there, Jin.
Okay, sorry. Liam. Oh, why? Why do I get it wrong? But it's nice to have an understanding of what's going on around you to the point where you can articulate it to people in different or from different walks of life, because that's what's going to be necessary. Always have the basic standard, which is definitely Earth is measured flat and utilized flat, without a doubt. Fundamentally, you could not exist without that fact. Actually, we've been building in that, living your lives. You'd be surprised. And yeah, so that's fundamental. Well, I can go that far with it, and I do. Yeah, I love putting that word fundamental in there. It really does finalize it. And it just triggers them, though. That's the thing, you see. Can't say it gently. Well, Earth is actually measured and utilized flat, You're just going to get a tsunami of fucking globe shit. When you say it isn't, for you to have your globe shit, fundamentally, Earth is measured and utilized flat, without a doubt. That is fundamental to your crap that you carry. And now that gets them triggered up. Yeah.
Nathan, do you know when you looked at that map guy's channel, did you come across a video where he's going, I didn't watch it myself, but I made a note of it to check it out. He had a video on time, and I was curious to see
who's the map guy. I don't know who you're talking about. Who's the map guy?
The guy
Matt.
from the other day.
Wayne?
Yeah, that's the one.
What's your question?
When I was scrolling through his channel, I saw he had a video on about how we have time, and I was curious to how he'd present that. I was just wondering if you watched that yourself, because you said you checked a few videos out.
No, I haven't seen that, but that would be useful. I mean, in terms of flat Earth elevation angle measurements, that's how we do, and I'm sure he'll be covering that, right? It's derived from the movements of the sun, or from the.
I'll go get a link for the video.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to cover that, I mean, I don't mind covering him again. I just don't want to cover his anti-flat Earth rhetoric where he's trying to square circles.
Yeah, Nathan, I got a question. What about the other one that you were going to do, where the guy's using GPS to circumnavigate on the ocean? Can we do that one?
Yeah, we'll do that as well. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I want to do next. That's the one that's the one we should be doing tomorrow, if it's possible. So we've got so much material coming in. It's all good.
Yeah.
People said the show is exciting because Jim brings in some fire and some pepper with it. Yeah. Let's keep it going,
All down to you, Jim.
We missed Neil tonight. We did miss Neil tonight, though. Point noted there on the record. Where were you, Neil? Naughty boy.
I saw he joined before, at the start of the pre-show, but disappeared straight away.
He must be busy then. He might have got a job. Let's hope that's what it was. Someone's called you. I need you up to lay out this carpet. Come on, hurry up. Bring your leveling tool, yeah? Not the curve. We don't use that around here. That'll be a curved spirit level, if anyone's wondering. Curve. Yeah.
I've stuck that link in your DMs in Teams there, Nathan, and Master B.
Well done, mate.
I also sent you a message regarding hashtags. I don't know if you've had any chance to see that yet.
I hadn't. I'll have a look.
It's basically trying to make the most out of the YouTube algorithms, even through the censorship. But the more tags you can get in, the more searchable your content should be.
Okay, so I will have another go. Back in the day, I did try and put as many tags and alter them up and make them relevant to the content, and it didn't make a scrap of difference for me personally. So I, after a time, just gave up doing it. So it's not that I haven't looked at it. I have, but it just never made any difference.
There is a blurb that you normally post in your description, but you could just have a standard amount of keywords, then maybe the top, add an extra couple each show, depending on the topics. But yeah, if you say it's not made any difference, that sucks.
But in the past, so it might be different now. Who knows? But
yeah, I remember in the past when I used to make websites, I used to fill my pages with metadata and keywords, and I managed to get optimum search engine optimization. I used to be top of all the searches.
Right. I'll have another go. There's no reason why not. I mean, like I say, it's been probably a couple of years since I gave up on it because it wasn't making any difference. Like, it was just extra work. But there's no say that doing it again might make a difference. I'll give it another go. That's another reason why I say the egregious censorship, because things like that didn't make any difference. You're like, well, surely I'm more searchable. You're like, no, you still type in my name and Simon Dan comes up.
Content.
But I'll give it a go. All right, so we'll slide down to a grinding halt, it seems.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, sometimes it does go like that, We've covered all the points, really, at the main point here, Unless you want to talk about a piece of nonsense, I don't think you'd want that. You end up vomiting, I think, Nathan.
I just don't want to talk about it on the live shows. So, again, same with Christianity or religion in general, actually. I just don't want it on the live shows. If possible to avoid, There's certain circumstances where you go, no, I'll let this run, see where it goes, because it does sometimes generate a decent outcome. But for the most part, I want to keep the live shows just about flat Earth and flat earthing.
Well, okay. Well, it turns out the so-called James Van Allen radiation belts amplify the radiation as it comes towards Earth, apparently. There you go. There's a big piece of nonsense there for you. Recent news from 2 weeks ago, the Apollo detectives. Who are they? Marcus Allen, Britain. Robert J. Williams, American, and Scott Henderson, Canadian. And they've been scrutinizing the Apollo missions for 30 odd years plus. Right, and they put out a new video talking about how the Van Allen radiation belts actually amplify the radiation as they head towards Earth. Actually, they say it's a new twist. Blah blah blah. Thus proving that they could never have gone. And how did they manage it back then? What shielding did they have? Did they have the required shielding, etc., etc., etc.? Which was the material that I used on Sunday yesterday to take down a few of these believers in there. It worked out great. That was quite nice. Even though we know they could never have gone there, but, they do like to entertain themselves with their beliefs. And, yes, well, whilst I was there, I was just highlighting how that was impossible. All the while mentioning that Earth is measured flat and utilized flat. Right, and none of you out there, ladies and gentlemen, currently listening to me, have gone out to confirm that fact, have you? Right, because you're still believing you're on a ball, aren't you? Yeah, well, get out there and start measuring. Because you can't say you know the Earth is a globe. Nobody knows it. It doesn't exist. We're living on a flat Earth. So I had to say all that, still delivering the fact that it's impossible to go to the moon anyway. There you go. All right. It's very entertaining, it was. Earth Awakenings, yesterday's show. Yeah, and you had all the cronies there trying to give it. They knew all about the special film that was made. There was no special film because I gave them the names. I said, well, what's his name? HJP Douglas Arnold, Deputy Assistant Managing Director. That's it. Assistant Managing Director of Kodak UK, stated categorically that the film that was used, we could go to the shops and buy ourselves. So there was nothing special about it at all. Nothing. There was no special film made. The Ektachromac 500/EL70, and I was giving them all the numbers of that. They didn't even know the numbers. It was just ordinary film that we could all use, and it would never survive the vacuum of space.
What vacuum of space?
Blah, blah, blah. They suppose it's vacuum of space.
So the film wouldn't have worked in Narnia?
It would never have worked in Narnia, exactly.
Narnia's not real.
Narnia, we don't go there. It's only in The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe.
But we go to space to argue about whether or not film would work.
It couldn't work. They subjected it to a lesser value vacuum tour, 10⁻⁶ on their latest video there. 10⁻⁶ tour, right, which was done by a Greek guy called Bill Demos, and he has studied in the MIT, done some work now. He's working in Greece at the moment, and he subjected the film to 10⁻⁶, and they gave us the updates on that.
Why? Why did we subject it to that?
Oh, well, because they wanted, you're asking why? Because they wanted to show you what happens to film in a vacuum anyway.
Why?
They had to, hey, listen.
Well, yeah, go there. Go
how did they test the vacuum, Jim? They had to put it in a vacuum
They have
chamber.
a scale, don't they? They have a machine, right, with a scale on it and a pump, and it evacuates the air in the chamber.
All right. And how does that prove that there's a vacuum in space? Vacuums don't exist in nature. That's where I go.
Well, even if, look, if the vacuum in space doesn't exist as we know that, the thing is they created a vacuum of lesser torque of what's being said, okay? So that's good enough. They're proving their case. They're proving the case that it's not possible to go there, even though we know it doesn't exist. And if you were to go there, this is what would happen. If you were to go there, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's going to happen to your film at a much lesser value of vacuum than you are in meeting in space if you can go there. That's exactly what I said, yeah. Right, and I showed the material.
There doesn't exist because it violates the second law of thermodynamics. You need, vacuums do not exist in nature. End of story.
Right. Yeah, right. But then it's good to show them what happens to the film anyway. This is just like, the nail in the coffin, the proof in the pudding, showing them that it's not possible to go. Look at what happens at a lesser value of tour that you would find in space if it were there. Look at what you've got now, I'm glad that people do that because it's good to see the impossibility. Even though you know it verbally, let's see it in practicality. That's the engineering side of me there that appeals to that kind of thing, I love all that. Show what happens to the material and it shuts them down completely. They're completely destroyed. What it's all about. And I love all that. That's what I mean. I enjoy that piece of nonsense. I think on it a lot. Yeah. I'm an eighth down at it now. I'm that good.
We got it. But it's just the feast of nonsense allows begging the question of an area that doesn't exist to argue about how that area would compare to a vacuum that does exist.
The vacuum exists here on Earth. When you put it in a chamber, you can create a vacuum, which they do. They subject the materials that they said they took to space. The results are, look at what happened. They could never have gone.
Right, but you can't have
another nail, isn't it? That's all.
No, it's enabling the person you're arguing with to assume that there is a vacuum of space.
No, there isn't.
You're comparing it to a vacuum that we've got here, and saying, look how it differs.
Look, like you said, Nathan, the other day. Couple of weeks ago, you were saying you've got to allow them to have their beliefs, blah blah blah. So if they want to believe that the space and the vacuum, that's all very well and done. But we've already said that there is no vacuum up there. I don't believe in space. The only space I accept is the night sky that goes blue and that's the only space that I know. Not on that finish. Okay. Now, if you want to go and believe into deep space, that's up to you. I don't care. The point is, we don't go to the moon, and these are the reasons why. Reasons.
So the reason is because film wouldn't work there.
Reasons. Yeah, because the film wouldn't work, yeah. The film would not work, yeah.
Where?
In that imaginary place they call space. Their fantasy, in a vacuum, basically.
Yeah,
in any vacuum.
You can't have pressure without a container. So their alleged journey takes place in an area without containment, so it's a second law of thermodynamics violation. You say, well, if we assume that skies 10 to the minus 17 tour, I can show you how it isn't, because a vacuum won't work that way. It's like, well, what vacuum?
Okay, that's a good question. The vacuum that the so-called scientists and that cosmologists, theoretical physicists put forward, and NASA themselves said they went and visited, for example. All right, you put that, we're entertaining their nonsense to prove that they're being silly with it. And that's good. I'm glad people do that because it's nice. It's nice to see what happens to film in a vacuum. It's quite interesting. Very interesting, in fact, how harsh a vacuum environment is to man-made products. Nothing can survive it. The outgassing phenomena. Fucking brilliant.
Look, can I elucidate something here?
You go ahead.
Ruminate. So Nathan's question was, what vacuum? Your answer was 6. I wanted to say 10%, but I'm gonna say 1%. The scientists said so, and then 99% of it was talking about a vacuum, which is like non sequitur to the vacuum that we're talking about. So it's like 99%, look at how a vacuous environment works, and 1%, well, the scientists said there's a vacuum in space. So that doesn't.
Yeah, they said it's in space.
See the problem with
right? That's one thing.
What's that?
Yeah, he's talking about the scientists.
No, you said it's in space.
Putting
I said,
forward.
what's that?
Yeah. Pushing forward to the idea that the vacuum. I don't hold that position myself. Okay, and I've never done that except for when I was a kid, of course. And since I've learned about the moon landings being a hoax, that's when I realised. The thing is this: lesser value of values can be achieved here on Earth. The most is 10⁻⁶ tall, big vacuum chamber in Ohio, right? And then you can buy your own equipment and do a smaller vacuum of 10⁻⁻1.
I guess that's my point, right?
Right.
I'm saying the majority of your conversation is about vacuums that we can create on Earth in a chamber,
Yes.
and all of this.
Yes.
But it's not really about answering the question of space, what space? So what I'm saying is, look at how driven your answer is towards majority not being answering the actual question, even though that's your goal.
Well, the goal was to disprove that obviously they didn't go to the moon because it's not possible to go there. Space doesn't exist as the way it's been described. And the materials they said they took with them, well, here's what we created on Earth at a lesser value of what we're being told is up there. Okay, and look at what happened to the material here on Earth on a lesser value. So could they have actually gone? No, they couldn't have gone. No way could they have gone. No way. It's not a place we can go to in the first place, ladies and gentlemen. But they've lied to us that they went. Well, look at what's happened at lesser value. They're not going up there. Simple. No one's going there. So it's just helping people to see the truth as well as hearing it. That's all. Nothing wrong with that. Bringing the visuals, the practicality of their lies. This is how bloody ridiculous it is. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's punishing them for it. I see it as punishment, revealing the truth through the true nature. Right, there you go. There's what happens to a vacuum chamber there. Put the film in there. Now look at how the emotion begins to outgas. Now take a picture with that, and then everything's messed up. Come on, man, you gotta look at it. I love all that stuff.
I see. So, I guess in another way, you can say you're telling them that it's not possible. I like to, but when they ask me about Narnia, I like to keep it at, what do you mean? What's that? Because then if they can't come up with anything substantial, it wasn't me telling them that that's not the case. It was them coming up with nothing and then allowing the conversation to move forward because they have nothing.
Yeah,
not me telling them what's impossible and them just accepting that from me. Because obviously people aren't going to want to accept stuff even if it's true.
Yeah, that's a valid point you do. That's your technique there again, coming into play there, which is a good methodology, which I use, but most people don't want to go down that route. They're going to insist that they went, and they're going to bring their nonsense with it, and then this is where you have to shut that down, you see? So what you put forward is good. I've always agreed with your methodology, no disapproving of that, and I do use it. But there are times when that road, they're just spiraling out of control, and they're throwing in all this nonsense in there, and then you say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, well, look at this. Here's a piece of evidence, strong evidence. Look at this. This is what happens to the film at lesser tall values than you would find in space if you could go there, if there is a vacuum there. We don't know that at all, but this is lesser value to what we've been told, and look what happens to the film.
The objection is when you say that you would find in space, because then you're assuming the space. That's the problem.
Yeah, that you could find in space if you were to go there, is what I said. If you and already telling them that it's impossible to go there, and I don't hold a position that space exists as it's been told. I'm just giving you what the experts tell us, and I'm showing you through their theories. Look at what we've got here. Look at what's happening right now in front of your eyes at a lesser value than what's supposedly going on in space, as it's been told to us. So they could never have gone. NASA could never go there. They lied.
You keep saying if, but you do know that vacuums do not exist in nature at all, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I get you know what you guys are hitting at, because I'm hitting at the same thing.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to be a hypocrite to Jim, because while what we're talking about is true, I literally and I do talk about this a lot. When guys start talking about seeing the curvature and this, that, and the third, I let all that build up, not to go, what's that got to do with flat Earth, to be honest. Respond to that. I let it build up. They're bringing up all these points, these rockets, this rocket launch, that rocket launch. And I'm like, and then I go, okay, Paul Larson says that at the height of the ISS, you wouldn't even see curvature.
Where's that?
I mean, mathematically speaking, if you were looking at the Earth from that altitude, it would still look like a horizontal plane, the horizon.
What's altitude?
Altitude is height with respect to a horizontal plane.
And where's the ISS again?
In the sky.
In the sky vacuum?
Supposedly.
See where I'm going? See, Eli's being a lot more docile in this regard, right, compared to Jin, because he's been around the rhetoric longer. So you intrinsically understand all of our objections, right, Eli?
Right. So, you know, it really depends on what you want to do that day. You know, if it's being a flat Earth pioneer, be a flat Earth pioneer. If it's, I want to F with this dude today and ruin his day cognitively, do that. Like, I don't know. And of course, the best option, help them, if you can.
What I miss? What's up? What I miss?
Hi.
What was the topic today? Besides Earth measures flat, what?
We're just going through various things that have been covered in the past that we, I don't know, don't necessarily beg the question of, unless, as Eli puts it, you're just trying to fuck with the guy that you're demolishing.
I mean, it's too tantalizing. It was like the other, you know, this guy's going off about the horizon this, the horizon that, boats this, and the sun that. And I let it build up. And I'm like, oh, word. Yeah, all right. And the horizon. And then the horizon, no, the horizon is what? Apparently not. Here's an observation of the horizon being not that. I don't know what you're talking about, sir. Oh, it just gets more convoluted on their end. Like, I talk less and they talk more. That's totally fine. I'm playing Call of Duty in the background.
Yeah, whilst I'm busy nailing the man in his coffin. Bam, 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 this point. Bam, 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 that point. Bam, 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 this point. Let me get to the other end. Bam, 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 bam. And then bam. There you are. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Game over. Thank you.
And all of that is you basically passing him nails. You're just handing him nails. Here you go.
I'm just locking him in his coffin, nailing him in his coffin. And then the last thing is just to lower him into the ground.
He's fine, bam, 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 bam.
I think part of our problem is that we're not thinking of this in terms of apologetic, epistemology, how we know what we know to be true. And I'm sorry to keep hitting on what is the meaning of truth or what is true, but that's what we are trying to do when we are trying to open up people's minds or to show them the truth. And what we are doing is bogging down in the way we apply our apologetic, because we really don't want to just show somebody the truth. We want to fuck with them or prove them wrong or prove me right and stuff like that. When you, and again, sorry, bringing it into the Christian realm, we are supposed to know our apologetics, the reason for our faith and our belief that the gospel is true and God is and Christ is who he said he was and things like that. Our apologetics in the flat earth realm is bogged down when we, and I'll bring it back to the Christian realm, when we argue with an atheist who denies God in the first instance, and we say creation requires a creator. That's a logical syllogism. That's a logical statement. That is a truth. We see creation. It was created. The atheist says, nuh-uh. Just because it looks created doesn't mean it's created. Just because you say level doesn't mean it's flat. Just because you say it's horizontal doesn't mean it's level. The atheist, the anti-flat earther, the denier of truth of the nature of Earth is resorting to sophistry and nonsense because they can't process, they can't admit what is true. They deny it. And the Bible says they deny the truth and unrighteousness. Gosh, they know that it's true. You look at something that's level, you say, is that level? Yeah, that's level. But not really. It doesn't mean it's flat. They're denying the truth in unrighteousness. You can't use arguments, material arguments, evidence-based arguments against someone who denies the very meaning of truth, because the arguments just get bogged down. It's like arguing with an atheist that you say, well, evolution isn't true. You've got the genes rule, blah, 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 and you've got all that stuff. So I think that if we truly want to enlighten people to the truth that we know of how the earth is measured in this case, then all we can do is get our apologetics correct and just state the truth and don't engage in the sophistry that ensues with someone who denies truth. It's pearls before swine. And you just got to let them figure it out once you tell them the truth. And it's off, the blood's off your hands once you tell them what's true. But don't argue with an atheist about how atheism doesn't work and atheism is a religion. Oh, you're atheism, that's a religion. And then they're going to argue about whether that's a religion or not. And what about your God? What about your flat earth? Well, what about this? What about that? There's evidence that evolution is true. There's all kinds of evidence. I was arguing with another Christian heliocentrist. about the Big Bang, you know? And so we're going to argue about how light years don't work, or how the cosmic radiation background evidence, the evidence suggests that the Earth is young. I said, well, the evidence suggests that vacuums don't exist in nature. So everything's gone. The first law of thermodynamics is void any conceptual theory of space or a Big Bang or whatever all that evidence. No, vacuums don't exist in nature. If you want to argue anything about anything related to cosmology, you need to prove that in our current reality cosmology that a vacuum even exists. And if you can't do that, then argument's over. My apologetic is done. If you want to accept something else, whatever, you're denying the truth and unrighteousness. 1 + 1 is 2. It can be 2.2 if you do it this way. You know, that's sophistry. Thank you. Are we thinking about things, or was I on mute the whole time?
No, we were thinking about what you'd said.
No, well, I was thinking as well, and I was just going to say, you know, there's even people that's been in Discord and on here that may not be worshipers of the Jesus Christ, you know, faith or whatever, but they are not atheists, number one. Number two, they do acknowledge that the earth is measured flat and is flat and was created and there's no evolution and things like that. But back to the whole subject of truth. Truth is like a gem under the ground that people may believe is under there because of statistics or, you know, other locations in this earth. So there's a lot of different gems under there. Because this is the geographical point where if someone said they found it in the 18th century or whatever like that, in order to find it, you have to, you know, it's going to be there regardless if you believe it's there or whether you bother to disprove it or prove it. It doesn't need to be. The truth is the truth. And at the end of the day, the truth is what it is. It has nothing to do with someone's belief, their cognitive perspective, their opinion. What else? There's heavy diligent studying of past researches or whatever. The truth is the truth. That's all to it. Period, point blank.
Yeah, you forgot no matter they're slant or bent.
Right. No matter what their culture is, no matter what their faith is, the truth is the truth. Okay, so if somebody's talking about the horizon, regardless if they don't know that it's only perspective and it's an observation, but it's not an actual tangible type of thing because everybody has their own horizon. Everybody sees it from whatever point they're standing on the earth. They see a horizon. Nevertheless, that person is admitting by using the word horizon that it's horizontal and it's leveled, period. So with that aspect of that observation right there. But back to the truth is the truth, no matter what angle you come from. The truth is going to be its own. There's no, well, that's his truth, and that's her truth, and that's my truth, and no, it doesn't work like that. And that's the problem. People think it depends on what truth you're talking about. Nah, it doesn't work like that. There's only truth. Everybody else is conjective. It's their own cognitive perspective. It's their own conjecture, and it's their own feelings in there. Well, I believe, well, to my knowledge. I'm like, shut up. Truth is truth.
There are many roads to getting to the truth, though, ladies and gentlemen, and I explore all those roads, and I love it. Okay, yeah, and I'm prepared to exhaust every energy that I can muster up to ensure that that truth gets heard and heard correctly. Yeah, once or twice I might make a mistake here and there, but for the most part, they do get the message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you say that truth, you mean truth, not that truth opposed to that truth or that truth or that truth. Don't even say that truth. Just say truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it yesterday when we were talking about the Feast of Nonsense, which is the moon landing hoax. And around about 4 or 5 times, I had to let the people who were listening in the live stream, because the people in the panel or in the server, you know who they are and you know their positions. But it's a live stream and it goes out to like Ruskin, Rumble, and YouTube and all the others, Twitter, X, you name it. They're doing it. So I always say to them, explain to them that Earth is measured, flat, and utilized. But I have to say that whilst I'm talking about this piece of bloody nonsense known as the moon landing hoax. So, yeah. And I'm glad I did that, because I did that on the fly. So on the fly, I'm giving them the sources of this information, of this nonsense that people have scrutinized over. And at the same time, ensuring that they understood that Earth is measured flat. It is not possible to go to these places. We're living on a flat Earth. That dictates that it is utilized and measured flat. That's what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen. There is no going to space. We don't do that stuff. And then carry on with the destruction of the moon landing host, and then still dropping that flat Earth measurements again all the way through. Yeah. So, yeah. And there were no end of interruptions. And they said, the more you interrupt, the longer the pain. So you keep interrupting me. I am going to get out what I'm going to get out. It's going to get out, mate. Don't you worry. I'm going to have what I've got to say. So keep interrupting, yeah? I don't interrupt you. So I say to them, I don't interrupt you.
Victory Royale!
Yeah. Because the truth is unbearable, isn't it? That's what happens, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is so painful. They try to character assassinate me. They said I'm not an engineer, but ladies and gentlemen, anyone calling themselves an engineer here and they're telling you you're on a spinning ball hurling through the universe and they went to the moon, they're lying, because I'm giving you the mechanics as to how it is impossible and the sources to that. So don't be telling, they're just telling you they went, and they want you to believe. And what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Believing information that you've been received without confirmation or validation. I'm not doing that for you. I'm giving you the source so you can go and look and scrutinize for yourself.
And Jim, that's where I'm with you, carrying the sword. Those who call themselves surveyors, engineers, pilots, whatever, the ones that use the profession of measurement that prove latitudinal and elevation angles, all of that, and as far as levels and things like that, those are the ones you bear you don't walk on eggshells. You swing hard with the sword. The normies, that's why I understand where you come. You don't make them feel like they're dumb or ridicule them, because a lot of them don't know any better. And then you can really turn them off and be like, yeah, flat Earth is a dicks. I ran into this one guy. You don't want that. But the ones that are like Matthew Learns, Matthew Weathers, things like that, Daniel, those are the ones you swing hard and try to just chop limbs and heads off of all the lies. No mercy. No mercy.
Yeah, no mercy. No mercy at all. Yeah, exactly. And I speak in absolutes and finalizations as well. And I'm giving the sources on the fly. So they don't like my delivery method because they can't do it. They're carrying lies. I'm doing, and then after an hour and a half, he gave up. Yeah, because there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Jim CBR1 does it again. Because when you have the truth, there is no ceasing on the truth. The truth is unceasing, ladies and gentlemen. I don't stop. Okay? Yeah, man. Got to make it entertaining for them as well, Whilst we're discussing this Narnia Feast of Nonsense and how it's impossible, even though we're living on a flat Earth that is measured and utilized flat. But I bring that all into it. That's just rubbing salt in the wounds. Oh, I love it.
Hey, Nathan, if you can recall, was it you or who brought up the Narnia? I think that was one of the greatest metaphors for the whole space dichotomy.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
I don't know who did it, but kudos to them, big time. That was perfect.
Yeah, definitely.
Nathan said,
probably would have been Nathan.
Nathan said, he was so inconspicuous. He said, me.
Could have been Nathan. 98. Sounds like a Nathan thing, you know.
Yeah,
I don't remember anybody. I don't remember Jerem using it, or Dave Weiss for that matter, or even Mark Sargent.
One of the
No, I'm not even talking about. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about within, within
no,
FED click.
Using the terminology. Well, I was using
within the click, within this click here.
Oh, it was me then.
It was you, Jen?
Yeah. Today.
No. I'm talking about who brought it up. Period. Since way before you were on the panel, like.
Oh,
there you go again. So you hear him? Do you hear him? Me.
Yeah, it would have been Nathan then. There you go. Like I said.
With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.